Warrior Lore. Chapter 22-27. So it's like that. Xiaohua nodded and didn't ask anymore. He smiled with interest. Second senior brother wouldn't come to ask me about Buddhism sect's cultivation technique, right? Hee, don't overestimate Buddhism sect's cultivation technique. Zhang Qingxiao looked around and casually found a place to sit down cross-legged, facing Xiaohua. He said, just now, elder brother has already said that Buddhist sect and devil cultivators are mutually exclusive. Buddhist sect may have some advantages, but in the end, it will depend on whose cultivation is higher. If Buddhism sect is powerful, why was it exterminated by Tao sect? Hearing this, Xiaohua thought and smiled. Then second senior brother, do you know why Buddhism sect was exterminated? What's inside Buddhism sect's ruins? Zhang Qingxiao shook his head and said, I don't care about these things, so I don't know. Buddhism sect has been exterminated for a long time, and a lot of evidence has disappeared. I'm afraid that only ancient sects have some records of the reason. Right, I'm warning you. Buddhism sect's ruins, it's best not to go. If you fall into the eyes of some people, they will discover your Buddhism sect cultivation, and your life will be difficult to protect. At that time, the entire Tao sect of Dawn Rain continent will kill you. Even if I expand Heavenly Devil sect 10 times, I still won't be able to save you. Xiaohua nodded and smiled. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. And Zhang Qingxiao nodded and stared at Xiaohua for a while, causing Xiaohua to feel a little scared. Actually, I came here to ask you a question. Zhang Qingxiao looked at Xiaohua's eyes again and said word by word, have you really not recovered your memory? And really not. Xiaohua stared at Zhang Qingxiao and said word by word without holding back. I'm actually very curious about you. Zhang Qingxiao said with a serious face. When you were with me, Shaming Huaming, your cultivation was slow, and you couldn't even advance to the 3rd level of qi refinement. But now, it's only been a few decades, and you actually have the strength of an early gold core. And even the early foundation establishment realm that you showed is absolutely out of the ordinary cultivation speed. One had to know that junior sister was only at the early stage of foundation establishment. She was at the 10th level of qi refinement back then. Not to mention, you actually have a flying sword and Buddhism sect's cultivation method. What about you? Xiaohua also asked. Aren't you also at the gold core stage now? You think you can compete with me? When Zhang Qingxiao saw that Xiaohua was always trying to change the topic and always trying to curry favor with her, she couldn't help but get angry. I, your father, coincidentally obtained a devil cultivation method and was also abandoned by the heavens. What's more, I got the Lingji treasure in Lingpei Mountain Villa. I was at the late stage of the gold core realm in my previous life. What's so strange about me reaching the gold core realm now? What about you? Did you also have such an opportunity? Lingpei Mountain Villa's condensed knowledge treasure is actually real. Xiaohua was surprised. Is there really such a divine item as the condensed knowledge treasure in this world? Don't change the topic. Zhang Qingxiao said coldly. I avoided junior sister today to ask for details. You? Who the hell are you? Xiaohua wasn't afraid at all. He sneered and replied word by word. Then this young master will also tell you that this young master still doesn't know who I am or where I came from. Then why is your cultivation advancing so fast? Zhang Qingxiao asked again. Could it be that you also have the condensed knowledge treasure? This young master doesn't have such a good past life. Xiaohua shook his head and said, this young master's cultivation was painstakingly cultivated by myself. Do you think I, your father, will believe that? Zhang Qingxiao laughed sinisterly. Do you still remember what I said when I found out that you actually knew how to refine pills? Of course I remember. Xiaohua said without hesitation. This Shanghuaming and Yellow Flower Ridge are the places where you grew up. Master, senior brother and senior sister are also the people closest to you in this world. You will definitely not let them hurt you. No matter who, as long as they dare to hurt them. Even if you go to the 9th heaven, the 9th underworld. Even if you fall into the devil's path or the ghost's path, you will never forgive them. Did this young master say anything wrong? That's right. You remember it very clearly. Zhang Qingxiao replied. Now that I have fallen into the devil's path, I have to find the murderer who killed master and senior brother. You are so mysterious. This young master always feels uneasy. If I don't figure out your background, this young master. Hee hee. Xiao Hua laughed exceptionally brilliantly and cupped his hands, saying, Sect Master Zhang, if you can figure out my background, this young master will burn yellow paper and cut off a chicken's head to swear an oath of brotherhood with you. Bah! A strange expression appeared on Zhang Qingxiao's face. Then, he stretched out his hand, and a drop of black blood flowed out from his middle finger. That black blood was very strange, as if it had a life of its own. It bubbled in the air, and every time it boiled, a ghost's face would appear from the black blood. Xiaohua, this is the famous black blood curse of the devil realm. Do you dare to swear an oath with me? Swear that I won't hurt Shang Huaming? That I won't have disloyalty towards you and senior sister? Xiaohua said disdainfully. Why wouldn't this young master dare? Good, Zhang Qingxiao clapped and said, you don't have to have any disloyalty towards me. As long as you don't have any disloyalty towards senior sister. As long as you don't have any disloyalty towards me, Shang Huaming. With that, Zhang Qingxiao was about to cast another spell. Wait, Xiaohua stopped him and said, this young master dares. But this young master disdains to swear a blood oath like yours from the devil realm. If this young master wants to swear an oath, it will be a blood oath from the Dao sect. Zhang Qingxiao's eyes flickered as he looked at Xiaohua's calm expression thoughtfully. Then, he said softly, swear an oath in front of me. Good, Xiaohua didn't hesitate and swore an oath. However, just as Zhang Qingxiao said, this oath didn't include Zhang Qingxiao. Fine. Zhang Qingxiao opened his mouth, and the infinitely changing black blood entered his mouth. He sighed and said, don't blame senior brother for making things difficult for you again and again. It's just that Shang Huaming is where I grew up. I must ensure the safety of this place. This young master understands. Xiaohua nodded. Although I didn't grow up, I was still picked up by master. My feelings for Shang Huaming may not be as shallow as second senior brothers. Like second senior brother, I will do my best to support Shang Huaming and pass on master's legacy. Yes. Zhang Qingxiao looked up at the herb garden not far away and said, this herb garden is really pitiful in my hands. In junior brother's hands, it's flourishing. But now, it's even more expanded. As time passes, we are no longer in the same place. While our cultivation increases, each of us has more secrets. Although these secrets won't be completely revealed to each other, I hope that there won't be any estrangement because of this, and we won't endanger each other's trust. Are you kidding me? Second senior brother, this should be what I ask you. Xiaohua smiled bitterly. Hasn't second senior brother been forcing me all this time? Who told you to have too many secrets? If I don't suspect you, who do I suspect? Could it be that I suspect Zhang Luer? Zhang Qingxiao rolled his eyes at him. Second senior brother left, and right has hurt my heart. You have to compensate me, Xiaohua said with a grin. Zhang Qingxiao immediately covered his storage bag and said, what are you planning? Hee, I need cultivation methods of the 5 elements, preferably complete foundation establishment, golden core, and nascent soul. Without waiting for Xiaohua to finish speaking, Zhang Qingxiao got up and said, I didn't hear anything, just take it that I didn't come today. Damn it, you're a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. What cultivation methods don't you have? Yet you come to my heavenly demon sect to take advantage of me. What nascent soul cultivation method? Why don't you have a spirit-severing cultivation method? Don't. Xiaohua's face was bashful as he hurriedly pulled Zhang Qingxiao's Taoist robe and said with a smile, actually, I didn't think too much just now. Who told you not to trust me so much? Since you did it, you should compensate me. If you don't have nascent soul cultivation methods, give me foundation establishment and golden core cultivation methods. AI, I'm really scared of you. Zhang Qingxiao slapped his storage bag and threw out a few jade slips and said, at most, I have golden core cultivation methods, nascent soul cultivation methods. In the future, let's see if there's a chance. With that, Zhang Qingxiao covered his face and left. This time, not only did he not find Xiaohua's origin, but he also broke a few cultivation methods. Xiaohua stayed in Yellow Flower Ridge for a few more days, looking at every corner of Yellow Flower Ridge. However, every time he went to a place, Xiaohua would think of someone, but he didn't feel refreshed. Therefore, when the heavenly demon sect disciples brought the spirit herbs and seeds of 100 Herbs Gate, and even the jade slips, Xiaohua bid farewell to Xiao Xinrui and Zhang Qingxiao. Yellow Flower Ridge had Zhang Qingxiao, so Xiaohua couldn't do much. The new 100 Herbs Gate needed Zhang Qingxiao's support, so Xiaohua was useless. Since that night, after forcing Xiaohua to reveal his origin, Zhang Qingxiao didn't look for Xiaohua alone again, as if he was completely relieved. Even when Xiaohua said goodbye, Zhang Qingxiao didn't ask a word. In fact, it was just like what they said that day. Everyone has their own opportunities, as long as their feelings for Shang Huoming didn't change. Xiao Xinrui's injuries had been completely healed in the past few days. Although her cultivation hadn't fully recovered, there were all kinds of spirit pills given by Xiaohua in her storage bag, and with Zhang Qingxiao's care, her cultivation would probably advance rapidly in the future. Xiao Xinrui knew that Xiaohua was a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect at this time, so he had no choice but to leave. She didn't ask any more questions and only gave a few reminders, reluctantly watching Xiaohua fly away. As for Zhang Luer, she had become very familiar with Zhang Qingxiao these days and treated Xiaohua as nothing. Alas, with the appearance of second senior brother, I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. But after leaving Yellow Flower Ridge, Xiaohua seemed to have unloaded a heavy burden. However, now that he thought about it, he felt that the burden was much heavier. Previously, he had always regarded the destruction of 100 Herbs Gate as his goal of revenge, but now that 100 Herbs Gate was destroyed and Yellow Flower Ridge returned to Shang Huoming's hands, Xiaohua's previous goal was achieved. However, after knowing the truth of Shang Huoming's destruction, Xiaohua couldn't relax. After all, the enemy was a nascent soul cultivator. It was even possible that he was a nascent soul cultivator from the 3 major sects of the state of Shi. How could Xiaohua relax? Forget it. Even if the sky falls, there are still tall people to hold it up. With second senior brother as the sect leader of the Heavenly Devil sect, I can only slack off. Xiaohua smiled for no reason. Although Zhang Qingxiao forced him to do so, he didn't have any resentment in his heart. After all, he really couldn't explain his origin and cultivation. It would be strange if she didn't suspect him. -8. Chapter 22-28. It seems that I have to hurry up and cultivate so that I can conceive a nascent soul as soon as possible. Xiaohua, through the various techniques he plundered from Zhang Qingxiao into the space, and handed them to the primordial spirit that was comprehending the jade slip. Only in this way can I help second senior brother when he finds the culprit. 3 nascent soul cultivators. Without late-stage nascent soul, or even spirit-severing stage, don't even think about it. Rumble. A faint sound of thunder came from Xiaohua's body as he used the Imperial Thunder travel technique. However, his direction was not the Imperial Thunder sect, but the Tianmin Mountain. Of course, Xiaohua was not going to the Tianmin Mountain. Dozens of days later, in a place full of flowers, Xiaohua's figure flashed mysteriously as if he was born from the void. Although his figure was a little shaky and lacked some elegance compared to Zhang Qingxiao, his proficiency in using the technique was not inferior to Zhang Qingxiao's. Strange. The Demon Realm's concealing technique. How can I use it so easily? According to what second senior brother said, I shouldn't be able to learn this technique. Xiaohua's face showed a trace of astonishment as he whispered, I'm not a demon. Forget it. Isn't it good to be able to use it? Xiaohua was very envious of Zhang Qingxiao's concealing technique. In a moment of curiosity, he used his Buddhist sense to look at it and used it according to the technique. How could he not be surprised that he could succeed within dozens of days? Immediately, Xiaohua raised his eyes and looked at the flowers under his feet. His eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. Buried Flower Manor. Manor Lord Chun-Yi, I'm coming. Even if I can't kill that person, I'll destroy your buried flower manor. Huh? How come it's gone? Could it be that I'm lost again? Xiaohua released his divine sense and looked at the range of dozens of miles. As a result, the confusion in his eyes increased. That's right, This was the place where he came to find Xiejichin last time. It was also the location of Buried Flower Manor. The flowers didn't change and the scenery didn't change. It was just that the formation was gone and Buried Flower Manor was gone. Xiaohua thought for a moment and formed a technique with his hands. When the technique landed on the ground, there was no reaction. There was no magic power fluctuation that Xiaohua expected. Clearly, there was no concealment array at all. After that, Xiaohua, who refused to give up, not only used his Buddhist awareness to search again, he even used his Dharma eyes, but he didn't see any clues. Could it be that the flower burial manor can be moved? Xiaohua's heart suddenly moved as he thought of a possibility. If that's the case, then it'll be difficult. Where can this young master go to find Chunyi? Forget it, let's not waste any more time. There's still some time before the half-year deadline. Let's hurry up and get down to business. After he finished thinking, Xiaohua formed seals with his hand and once again urged his magic power to fly, and he swiftly flew away amidst a wave of faint sounds of wind and thunder. In the blink of an eye, his figure disappeared into the horizon. Half a year later, on the Sky Thunder Peak of the Imperial Thunder Sect, dozens of lightning boats of all kinds were hovering in the air. They were like dark clouds that covered the sky. On the Sky Thunder Peak below the lightning boats, several thousand people were roughly divided into 8 areas and scattered on the peak of the Sky Thunder Peak. Every cultivator's face was slightly excited, and there were also traces of uneasiness. Beside them, there were more or less masters who were sending them off. Different from the previous experiential training, all the cultivators here wore the same style of Taoist robes. These Taoist robes were navy blue, and within the blue, there was a hint of scarlet red, which was actually somewhat similar to the color of heavenly lightning. On the sleeves of every cultivator, there was a lightning symbol. It should be the symbol of the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples. In a place near the edge of the Sky Thunder Peak, several hundred disciples of the Thunderous Palace were similarly dressed. They each checked their storage pouches, and the voices of men and women were incessant. Which one is helplessness? At this moment, a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator flew over. It was Senior Brother Qian, who Xiaohua met half a year ago when he flew out of the Sky Thunder Peak. Disciple is here. In an inconspicuous corner, Helplessness flew into the air and respectfully saluted. Senior Brother Qian sized him up with a glance, clapped his hand, and took out a token. He asked, "Is this your keepsake?" Helplessness glanced over and nodded. "Correct. It is indeed Disciple's keepsake. That disciple of yours named Xiaohua still hasn't returned, right?" "That's right." Helplessness's expression was very calm. "Good." Senior Brother Qian nodded. "Since he hasn't returned, I presume you also know that when the time is up, my Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples will activate the Thunderbolt and take your life." Disciple understands. Helplessness still nodded. I don't even know what you're thinking. Aren't you courting death?" Senior Brother Qian coldly looked at Helplessness and turned to leave. Another voice said, Senior Brother Qian Jing, what are you doing here instead of guarding the mountain gate?" Junior Brother Qian Dihong? Qian Jing was also slightly startled. He raised his head and a trace of astonishment flashed through his eyes. "What are you doing here instead of staying at the Heavenly Thunder Palace and seeing off the disciples of the Heavenly Thunder Palace?" "Little brother is here to see off a good friend." Qian Diheng's divine sense swept over, but he was slightly startled. He didn't see Xiaohua's figure. "Martial Uncle Helplessness, where's Xiaohua?" Qian Dihong still called him Martial Uncle Helplessness because of Xiaohua. "Xiaohua went out half a year ago." Helplessness said indifferently, "He hasn't returned yet." "You know Xiaohua?" Qian Jing glanced at Qian Dihong and said, "You're here to see him off?" "That's right. Where did this guy run off to?" "He's about to leave. Why hasn't he returned yet?" Qian Dihong curled his lips and said, "This guy won't run away at the last moment, right? And let's see what kind of friend you've made." Qian Jing said, "He's the first one to go out with a master's token. He hasn't returned yet, so he must have run away." Senior Brother Qian, spiritual herbs can be eaten carelessly, but words can't be said carelessly. Qian Dihong was unhappy and said coldly, "Xiaohua is little brother's good brother. How could little brother not know his character?" Do I need you to chirp here? Looking at Qian Diheng's appearance, if Qian Jing wasn't a disciple of Qian Diheng's palace and also his senior brother, he might have already used lousy instead of little brother. Qian Jing's face was embarrassed, and his face turned red. He could only mutter, if he could return, he would have returned long ago. Now that he hasn't returned, do you still need to say anything? Can you speak a bit louder? Qian Diheng was even more unhappy and said coldly, Forget it, I still have to go to the mountain gate to guard. Qian Jing responded and said to Helplessness, Junior brother Helplessness, when the thunderbolt leaves, don't blame me for being merciless. Saying that, Qian Jing turned around to fly away. Don't worry, little brother will also go with you. Qian Diheng saw that Xiao Hua wasn't here, so he was disinclined to stay. He soared up and said, Little brother will go to the mountain gate to welcome Xiao Hua. Looking at the two people flying away, Helplessness's figure landed and saw Cui Hongshan's anger. Master, what do you want disciple to say to you? You see for yourself, what disciple said that day. Isn't it all coming true now? You are the one who is caught in the trap. You don't have us as an outsider who can see it clearly. Xiao Hua, that bastard, has clearly escaped. In another hour, the thunderbolt will depart. Where is Xiao Hua's figure? -8. Chapter 22-29. Junior brother Cui. Isn't it not time yet? Perhaps junior brother Xiao was delayed by some matters. Although Xiang Yang's face was filled with anxiety and his eyes were looking at the sky from time to time, he still spoke for Xiao Hua. Humph, you were all fooled by Xiao Hua. Cui Hongshan said angrily, What does a loose cultivator know about benevolence, righteousness, and morality? Master's life is. Haha. Master, look, isn't that Xiao Hua? Yin Qinglian's eyes were sharp. She held Xiang Zhili's hand and shouted, Ha ha ha, it really is foster father. Foster father, foster father. Xiang Zhili also jumped up in joy. If not for Yin Qinglian holding him, he would have already rushed out. Sure enough, in the sky, Xiao Hua was whispering something to Qian Diheng as he slowly flew over. When he was about to reach them, Qian Diheng clapped his hand and took out a storage pouch and handed it to Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua also took out another storage pouch and handed it to Qian Diheng. Qian Diheng didn't say anything else. He cupped his hands and turned around to fly away. When Xiao Hua landed, Xiang Zhili quickly went forward and bowed. Greetings, foster father. Xiao Hua smiled and helped Xiang Zhili up. Foster father left in a hurry and came back too late. I'm afraid I can't fulfill my promise to you now. Come closer. Yes. Xiang Zhili's face was filled with surprise. Xiao Hua didn't say anything else. He set up a silent restriction and briefly explained the part of the dragon transformation art to Xiang Zhili. Finally, he said with a smile, This art can't be passed on to others. Your father and mother can't be told either. Yes, boy understands. Xiang Zhili nodded and hurriedly closed his eyes, carefully remembering what Xiao Hua said just now. Master. Xiao Hua removed the restriction at this time. He clapped his hand and took out the token. He helplessly said, Disciple was delayed by some matters. Please forgive me. And Xiang Zhili nodded helplessly and took the token. His face was still indifferent as he said, It's fine as long as you're back. Xiang Yang, bring the reward from the Thunder Palace and let him quickly change into a Taoist robe. The Thunderboat is about to leave. Yes. Xiang Yang took out a storage bag and handed it over to Xiao Hua. Junior brother Xiao, this is the reward for this expedition. There are pills and spirit stones inside, as well as a magic tool. Yes. Xiao Hua took the storage bag, took out the magic tool, and handed it to Xiang Yang. Give this thing to Lier. I don't need it. Then, he looked around and took out a new Taoist robe from his storage pouch to change into. He whispered to Xiang Yang, I've taught Lier something. It's not too profound. Let him figure it out himself. It'll be beneficial for him in the future. Okay. Xiang Yang glanced at Xiang Zhili, who was seriously memorizing the manual, and nodded in agreement. Xiao Hua. Zhuo Minghui stepped forward and said, Before you came back, your master had already told Hong Shan that he would take care of you. You don't have to get angry again. She had to listen to him. After all, you are fellow disciples of the same sect. He won't harm you. Xiaohua glanced at Cui Hongshan. Although Cui Hongshan's eyes softened, there was still some disdain. Normally, Xiaohua would have already refuted, but seeing Zhuo Minghui's eager gaze, Xiaohua could only nod and say, "Disciple understands." AI, Zhuo Minghui turned to Cui Hongshan and said, "Hongshan, your master has already said it. Master's wife will repeat it again. You must protect your junior brother's life with all your strength. Remember, remember." Disciple understands. Cui Hongshan respectfully agreed. Xiang Yang was different. He pulled Xiao Hua's hand and said, "Junior brother Xiao, you also heard master's wife's words. This is also what I want to tell you. Your cultivation is outstanding, far surpassing mine. You are also smart and alert. Junior brother Chui's life is in your hands. You must protect him. Remember, remember? We'll talk about it later." Xiaohua did not agree like Cui Hongshan. Everything depends on that guy's luck. Woo, a loud and clear sound of a bugle horn rang out, shaking the entire sky thunder peak. Then, dozens of thunderbolts began to emit faint lightning. "Disciples, take your positions." An old voice sounded, causing everyone's heart to tremble. "All right, master, master's wife, eldest senior brother and senior sister. Don't worry. With disciple here, I will definitely bring junior brother Xiao back safely." Cui Hongshan looked at the surrounding shocking Thunder Palace disciples flying to the thunderboats above his head and also cupped his hands and said, "Hongshan, everything depends on you. Watch Xiaohua. He is too willful." Finally, a trace of worry appeared on his helpless face. However, he immediately forced a smile and said, "After you leave, Master will also go into seclusion. I hope that when Master steps into Gold Core, I will be able to see your figures." "Oh, Master, you are going to take that thing?" Xiaohua reminded. "Before taking it, you have to ask eldest senior brother." "I know," helplessly sneered. "You just have to look after yourself." "Yes." Xiaohua nodded, cupped his hands towards everyone, and flew to the thunderboat before Cui Hongshan. Alas, this child. Seeing this, how could Zhuo Minghui be at ease? "Master, master's wife, disciple is leaving." Cui Hongshan said a few more words before flying to the thunderboat. Crackle, bursts of lightning flashed, and dozens of thunderbolts flew out of the sky thunder peak one after another, rushing into the sky. Alas, grape wine in a luminous cup. If you want to drink, the people will urge you to drink. If you lie drunk on the battlefield, don't laugh. Since ancient times, how many people have returned from battle? Helplessly and inexplicably, he said a few words, and then sadly said, "This time, I don't know how many of my shocking Thunder Sect disciples will return. Let's go." Looking up at the sky, there were many cultivators who felt sad in their hearts, but gradually, they dispersed, and the sky thunder peak regained its tranquility. After all, people had to walk, and the path of cultivation still existed. When Xiaohua flew to the thunderboat, he saw everyone standing on the side of the boat and waving goodbye to their masters. He casually found a place to sit cross-legged and thought about the events of the past 6 months. After leaving the Yellow Flower Ridge, Xiaohua couldn't find the Burial Flower Manor, so he went to the secret land of the Black Cloud Forest. The rice in his space was watered by the water of the Yinyang Pond in the secret land. If he wanted to cultivate spiritual herbs that could adapt to the changes in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, maybe the pond water was the key. But contrary to Xiaohua's expectations, the innate restriction in the secret plane didn't open at a fixed time. He was trapped inside for a few months before he was able to escape. If it wasn't for his lightning speed, he might not have been able to rush back to the Imperial Thunder Sect within half a year. However, during the several months of being trapped in the secret land, Xiaohua didn't lack in taking the pond water from the deep pond. Now, there was a huge lake in his space, and all the water was taken from the deep pond, and the water in the deep pond seemed to be endless. As long as Xiaohua took all the water from the deep pond, there would immediately be extremely cold and extremely hot spring water gushing out. Xiaohua sat on the thunderboat, but his mind was immersed in the space. Looking at the rippling lake water, he felt a sense of accomplishment. If this young master goes to the QC again, I will definitely bring in some sea beasts. Xiaohua thought greedily. Disciples. At this time, the rumbling thunderboat had already left the shocking thunder sect. A late-stage Foundation establishment disciple stood in the middle of the thunderboat and shouted, "Disciples? Enter the quiet room. 5 disciples per room." Hee, 5 disciples per room. Xiaohua raised his eyes and looked at the cabin door not far away. Just as he was about to leave, Cui Hongshan transmitted his voice, "Xiaohua, don't be anxious, follow I." Xiaohua was slightly stunned and glanced at him unhappily. But his feet didn't stop, and he went in first. Inside the thunderboat, there were many separate quiet rooms. Xiaohua only glanced at them a little and casually found a room to enter. That quiet room was empty, and there were no furnishings at all. Xiaohua walked to a corner and sat down cross-legged. He took out an azure spirit pill from his storage pouch, opened his mouth, and swallowed it, using his heart to refine the medicinal efficacy. Before Xiaohua went to Inkcloud Black Forest, he went to Bright City and asked Yuchan to help him bid for the Elian pill and azure spirit pill. When he returned from Inkcloud Black Forest, Yuchan had already found a lot of medicinal pills. When he returned to the shocking thunder sect, Qian Diheng also gave him a storage pouch with a lot of azure spirit pills. These medicinal pills should be enough for Xiaohua to use for a while, and he didn't need to worry for a short period of time. Of course, when Qian Diheng saw that Xiaohua asked him to bid for so many azure spirit pills, he already understood. However, he tactfully didn't ask anything, which was completely different from Xiaohua's unruly attitude when he was alone. I still came back late. I couldn't send a message to Xue. Xiaohua was somewhat regretful. Xue is probably still in seclusion. If that wasn't the case, I would have already come to see you off. While Xiaohua was meditating with his eyes closed, several disciples came in one after another. However, these disciples didn't come in alone, but in groups of 2s and 3s, as if they had already discussed this beforehand. Some disciples saw that there was someone in the quiet room and immediately shrank back. Finally, 4 disciples walked in while muttering. These 4 disciples were all at the 12th layer of the Qi refining realm. When they saw that there was an early-stage Foundation establishment senior in the quiet room, they were slightly stunned. Soon after, their brows relaxed, and they exchanged glances with each other. They respectfully walked in front of Xiaohua and bowed. "Junior greets Martial Uncle." When Xiaohua heard this, he didn't raise his eyes, and there was no joy or sorrow on his face. When the 4 disciples saw this, their faces were slightly embarrassed. They knew that Xiaohua didn't want to be disturbed, so they all shut up and found an empty space to sit down cross-legged. As for Cui Hongshan, when he saw that Xiaohua actually ignored him, he was very angry in his heart. However, he slightly clenched his teeth, coldly snorted, and stood still, no longer greeting Xiaohua. When almost all the disciples of the thunderous Thunder Palace had entered the quiet room, Cui Hongshan finally stepped forward. However, he didn't go to the quiet room, but instead turned around and walked towards the late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator. "Junior Martial Brother, why haven't you hurried into the quiet room yet?" Seeing Cui Hongshan sit down, the late-stage Foundation establishment old man didn't act too fierce and asked in a low voice, "Do you have something to ask?" When Cui Hongshan saw that old man's amiable expression, he had some confidence in his heart. He cupped his hands and said, "Disciple is Cui Hongshan from the Myriad Thunder Valley. May I ask for Senior Martial Brother's name? If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for it." -8. Chapter 22:30. Oh, so it's the helpless disciple. The old man returned the greeting. "I'm Jinyun. What's the matter, Junior Brother Cui?" Cui Hongshan looked around and transmitted his voice. "I want to ask, after we arrive at Huan Country, how will the disciples of Shocking Thunder Palace be distributed? Will we be organized according to the sect or randomly?" "Naturally, we'll be organized according to the sect and the Shocking Thunder Palace's usual division." Jinyun didn't hide it and said with a smile, however, "As for how we'll be organized, this old man doesn't know. This was already decided half a year ago when the disciples were selected." "Haha, Senior Brother Jin." Cui Hongshan came forward and said with a smile, "How could a teacher from half a year ago predict today's situation? It's impossible that there aren't any changes." Jinyun frowned and said, "What do you mean, junior brother Chui?" Chui Hongshan took out a small storage pouch and stuffed it into Jinyun's hands. He said with a smile, "I'm from Quan Yu's Chui family. This is my Quan Yu's blood red stone. It's not that rare, but it has some use in refining. If senior brother Jin likes it, you can pick it up and play with it." Jinyun's frown deepened. He pushed the storage pouch back with his hand and shook his head. "Junior brother Chui, you'd better make it clear. You and I are both disciples of Shocking Thunder Palace. If it's not too difficult, I can naturally agree. If it's too difficult, I'm afraid that even if I accept this blood-red stone, I won't be able to." Chui Hongshan's face reddened. He couldn't keep the storage pouch in his hands for long, so he hurriedly put it away and said with an apologetic smile, "It's nothing. My myriad Thunder Valley only has 3 disciples. Besides eldest senior brother Xiangyang, junior brother Chui and I were all sent out. Junior brother Chui's cultivation has just reached the Foundation establishment realm. I'm afraid that something will happen to him, and I won't be able to face Master." "Strange. There's a problem." Zhen Yun was puzzled. "Generally speaking, your myriad Thunder Valley has 3 disciples, so sending out 1 is enough. Moreover, your junior brother Chui has just reached the Foundation establishment realm, so he shouldn't be sent out." However, Zhen Yun immediately smiled and said, "Of course, this is the decision of the Thunderous Palace's elders. We can't casually speak of it. If junior brother Chui wants to protect your little junior brother, you don't have to say anything to me. You are all fellow disciples of the same sect, so it's convenient for you to send someone out. I won't force you to separate. It's not that important." Chui Hongshan transmitted his voice again. "If it weren't for this war, I wouldn't have come here." He had already prepared the betrothal gifts for dual cultivation half a year ago. Is it because of this that this Chui and that person were selected to go to Huan country together? Junior brother Chui, you mean? Hearing that Chui Hongshan's dual cultivation had been disrupted by the war, Zhen Yun felt great sympathy for him and asked tentatively. Chui Hongshan's face turned even redder, and he said with a smile, "This Chui indeed thinks so. I want to separate my wife from this Chui so that we can take care of each other. Even if something happens, we don't have to worry about each other too much." Alas, this is difficult. Seeing that Chui Hongshan had indeed made such a request, Zhen Yun was a little troubled. Our Thunderous Palace has sent out disciples from all the Thunder Palaces this time, and there are many female disciples. From what I know, these female disciples will definitely form a team with the male disciples in the future, but this team can't be led by the Thunder Palaces. So, this Chui wants to ask senior brother Jin to make an exception. Chui Hongshan put his hands into his chest again. "Don't rush." Zhen Yun made a prompt decision to stop him and asked again, "Which Thunder Palace is your dual cultivation partner from? What's her name?" "Senior brother Jin, my dual cultivation partner is Dui Qiming from Thunderous Palace." Chui Hongshan was delighted and hurriedly said, "Oh, so she's a disciple from Thunderous Palace." Zhen Yun's face showed a trace of relief, and he said with a smile, "The leader of Thunderous Palace is an old acquaintance of mine. Moreover, the disciples of Thunderous Palace must be evenly distributed to all the Thunder Palaces. Your request seems like I can still help you ask." "Io, thank you, senior brother Jin." Chui Hongshan was overjoyed and bowed. Then, he took out his storage pouch and stuffed it into Zhen Yun's hands. Hee. Unexpectedly, Zhen Yun didn't even take it. He waved his hand and said, "Junior brother Chui, if this old man guessed correctly, your storage pouch isn't filled with blood-red stones, right?" Chui Hongshan laughed and said, "It's just a small token of my appreciation. Since senior brother has to speak up for me, these favors are nothing." "You're wrong." Zhen Yun shook his head and said, "If it was any other day, this old man would accept junior brother Chui's gift. But not today." "Why?" Chui Hongshan was slightly taken aback and couldn't help but ask. "You are representing my thunder-controlling sect in this battle, and you are risking your lives to fight. Your request is for the sake of your relationship as a senior brother. The other is for the sake of your dual cultivation partner's love. Whether it's for public or private reasons, this old man will satisfy your request. If this old man accepts your gift because of such a small request, Do you think this old man will still have any face left? This? Chui Hongshan looked at each other in dismay. From the Chui family to the thunder-controlling sect, he had used spirit stones and spirit herbs to pave the way for many things. This small storage pouch had been given out countless times, but it was actually rejected today. This was truly beyond his expectations. Actually, many things are simple, but there are people who think too much about it. Jinyun smiled and said to Chui Hongshan, "You can go back now. This old man has already agreed. But this old man doesn't dare to promise you anything. If it's not done, junior brother Chui, don't blame this old man." Yes, Chui Hongshan felt a trace of warmth in his heart. However, an extremely awkward feeling arose again. What does Jinyun mean by this? Is he complaining that there aren't enough things in the storage pouch? But he didn't even look at the storage pouch. If he had agreed, there was no reason for him to not accept the storage pouch. If he didn't accept the storage pouch, did that mean he had agreed or not? Even if he had agreed now, if he didn't give it his all, what should I do? He had already said that he knew the leader of the thunder-converting palace, which clearly said that he could do it. But in the end, he said that if it's not done. Sigh, I still took too few spirit stones. Not only was Chui Hongshan's thoughts turning rapidly, but Jinyun waved his hand and said, "Junior brother Chui, quickly enter the quiet room. There are still a few months before we reach Hung country, so junior brother Chui can use this time to nourish your true essence. Perhaps you can have a breakthrough. It's also a good thing for your junior brother and your lover." After saying that, Zhen Yun ignored Chui Hongshan and turned to leave, instructing the disciple controlling the thunder ship to speed up. Chui Hongshan entered the quiet room in a daze, his heart feeling extremely uneasy. Not giving away the spirit stones was actually more painful than giving away the spirit stones and not receiving any response. -8. Chapter 22:31. However, when he found Xiao Hua and saw that there were already 4 disciples inside, the fire in his heart couldn't help but burst out. "I, your father, am shamelessly colluding with people outside, and you, on the other hand, are hiding in a place to cultivate. If it weren't for Master's orders, I wouldn't care about your life or death." Immediately after, Chui Hongshan glared at Xiao Hua, turned around and found the furthest quiet room. Without greeting the 3 aura-refining disciples inside, he sat down. "Greetings, martial uncle." When the 3 aura-refining disciples saw a foundation establishment disciple enter, they didn't dare to be negligent and hastily stood up to salute him. And Chui Hongshan waved his sleeves and didn't return the salute. He also closed his eyes and meditated. The 3 aura-refining disciples looked at each other with strange expressions on their faces. The northwest of the country of Shi was already very cold. Although it wasn't as cold as the country of Huan, it was a world of ice and snow. However, the mountains and forests were often covered in snow. Even the peaks of some high mountains and precipitous ridges were covered in white snow all year round. There were very few people from the secular world who could live here. Only at the edge of the mountains and forests, some mortals would gather in slightly warmer places. Naturally, they couldn't live by growing rice. Most of them hunted and dug out the spiritual herbs in the mountains and forests to make a living. Naturally, these spiritual herbs couldn't be compared to the spiritual herbs cultivators consumed. They were just some slightly older spiritual herbs that were extremely common in the eyes of cultivators. This vile environment was fatal to the people of the secular world, but to cultivators, it was extremely tempting. That was because the northwest of the country of Shi had dense spiritual energy and abundant natural resources. There were many spiritual herbs that could withstand the cold, and there were even more than 10 large and small spirit stone veins. Under these circumstances, not only were there many cultivation families, but there were also several cultivation sects. Among these cultivation families, the most famous ones were Skyscraper Ridges by Clan, Glacier Valley's Mei Clan, and Cool Breeze Mountain's Nyo Clan. Their clan heads were all in the late stage of foundation establishment and were only a step away from entering the Gold Core realm. There were also many other small cultivation families, but they were all below the middle stage of foundation establishment and couldn't enter the eyes of the cultivation sects. As for the cultivation sects, there were the Ice Soul sect, the Snow Crow sect, the the Pine Wave Ridge, and the Cold Mountain Enlightenment sect. The sect leaders of these sects were basically at the early or middle stage of the Gold Core realm. The strongest one was almost at the late stage of the Gold Core realm. Of course, including these cultivation families and sects, Sky Patrol City was the most powerful one. Sky Patrol City was one of the 7 major cities in the country of Shi. Its city lord, perfected Shuiyu, was already an early nascent soul stage cultivator. Sky Patrol City was different from Jinghua City and Chiyu City. It was built on the Snowy Highlands, at the peak of the Snowy Highlands. The entire city was like a fortress in the snow. Standing on the city walls, one could see the Snowy Highlands within a few thousand miles. From this point of view, Sky Patrol City was somewhat similar to Haoming City. However, there were both cultivators and people from the secular world in Haoming City. Since the Sky Patrol City was high up in the sky, it was impossible to come up without the help of the teleportation formation without flying techniques. Therefore, all the people in the city were cultivators. There was not a single person from the secular world. Usually, there were not many cultivators flying out of Sky Patrol City. Only the city guards of Sky Patrol City would go out at fixed intervals to patrol the area within a few hundred miles of Sky Patrol City. Most of the ordinary cultivators would use the teleportation formation. After all, this was the Snowy Highlands. Although the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was abundant, the weather was harsh. The cultivators who lived like princes would not waste their magic power to fight against the cold wind and snowstorms. However, in the past few years, the situation had changed greatly. Not only were there more cultivators flying in from the wind and snow, but there were also more cultivators who came in groups on flying artifacts. The streets of Sky Patrol City, which used to be slightly deserted, were now crowded. Needless to say, this was caused by the invasion of the Shi country by the sword cultivators of the Huan country. Of course, Sky Patrol City was still far from the border between the Huan country and the Shi country. The sword cultivators of the Huan country had not reached here yet. However, this was the largest city in the Shi country near the Huan country. It had always been the stronghold where the sword cultivators rested when they fought against the Dao sect. Regardless of whether it was the Shi country, the Ming country, or the Lian country, most of the cultivators gathered here. The leaders of the sects of the 3 countries were elected to command the battle against the sword cultivators. It was because of this that the number of cultivators increased. Some rogue cultivators, cultivation families, and even cultivators who were not selected by the sects gathered here. Some small auction gatherings and trading gatherings gradually became prosperous. Even the shops in Sky Patrol City became lively. It was as if the tension of the war had not reached here yet. However, this was normal. For tens of thousands of years, or even 100,000 years, the sword cultivators had invaded the Shi country, but they had never attacked Sky Patrol City. According to the records of Sky Patrol City, it was only 200,000 years ago that the sword cultivators occasionally attacked Sky Patrol City. However, only 3 years later, Sky Patrol City was seized by the Dao sect again. They chased the sword cultivators out of the Shi country. In addition, the governor of Sky Patrol City had always been a nascent soul cultivator. That was equivalent to the sect leader of the sword transformation realm. If the governor of Sky Patrol City wanted to participate in the war, then the sect leaders of the 3 major sects in the Shi country would definitely come. The sect leaders of Ming country and Lian country would also come. With these nascent soul cultivators, what danger would Sky Patrol City have? Therefore, the cultivators who did not participate in the war were not afraid of anything. If the sword cultivators came, they could just run away. However, what about the cultivators who participated in the war? On this day, it was snowing heavily like goose feathers, covering the entire sky. Sky Patrol City stood at the peak of the snowy region, and the entire city was covered in snow. It was not that Sky Patrol City did not have a defensive array, but this array was divided into several levels. The highest level could certainly block the snowflakes, but this would consume a lot of spirit stones. The Sky Patrol City had no reason to waste them. Even in such a snowy day, the cultivators did not stop their footsteps. Many of them flashed with brilliance, blocking the snowflakes outside their bodies. From time to time, they entered and exited the city gate of Sky Patrol City. Make way, make way. A loud voice sounded from afar. There's a battle report from the Western Front. Western Front? What's wrong with the Western Front? When the cultivators heard this, they all dodged and made way for the sky leading to the gate of the Sky Patrol City. A few older cultivators stopped in midair and looked at an early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator who was wearing the Sky Patrol City's guard uniform and holding a snow-white flag in his hand. They frowned and asked loudly, "The battle report has to be sent to the Yin-Shi mansion before the seniors in the mansion can send it out. I dare not make the decision without permission." The city guard unceremoniously cupped his hands and his figure did not stop in midair. He swept past these cultivators and rushed into Sky Patrol City. Sigh, it's been nearly a year. This confrontation with the Huan country, there's never been any good news. This time, looking at your city guard's anxious expression, I'm afraid it's not good news. A middle-stage Foundation establishment cultivator sighed and said to a late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator next to him, and the old man was flying towards Sky Patrol City. He glanced at the cultivator who spoke to him and nodded. The sword cultivators of the Huan country have always been more powerful than us. Moreover, this time, they struck first to gain the initiative and came prepared. It would be strange if we could drive them out at the beginning of the battle. In this old man's opinion, this time will be the same as before. There won't be anything special. The cultivators of the three countries are gradually gathering. When the disciples of the various sects and clans arrive, our strength will also increase. The disadvantage of this battle will gradually be reversed. In the end, the sword cultivators will still be driven away. That's right, I think so too. The middle-stage Foundation establishment cultivator said with a smile, "The sword cultivators and our Dao sect cultivators have not crossed swords once or twice. For so many years, they have been holed up in the Huan country. It's unlikely that they will rush out this time. Actually, the sword cultivators and our Dao sect don't have much of a grudge. Other than this battle, the disciples of the various countries usually cross swords with each other, and there hasn't been any foul play." The old man was very disapproving. "I heard that the sword cultivators attacked our Shi country with the excuse that their swordsmen went missing in Ming country, and the senior who went to look for them was also killed. Don't you think this is nonsense? If any cultivator from the three kingdoms of cultivation were to die, why would the sects attack and kill them? Our three countries have suffered many losses in Huan country, but we haven't attacked Huan country on a large scale." "That's right," the middle-stage Foundation establishment cultivator agreed. "If it's possible, why don't our three countries attack Huan country and kill all the sword cultivators?" "Ignorant," the old man scolded. "If we kill the sword cultivators, who will resist the millions of soul cultivators in Ming Mountain? Don't forget that soul cultivators are extremely difficult to deal with. The flying swords of the sword cultivators are the nemesis of soul spells. Our Dao sect spells won't work. Yes, I have indeed forgotten the pros and cons of this layer." The Foundation establishment cultivator smiled apologetically. "Thinking about the unpredictable soul spells of the soul cultivators, I almost feel my hair stand on end. Let's go." After entering the city gate, Yin-Shi mansion is just ahead. Let's go and see what happened. As the two spoke, they had already arrived at the city gate. In front of the city gate, which was dozens of feet high, stood dozens of guards of the Sky Patrol City. Most of them were in the Qi refinement realm, and only a few were in the Foundation establishment realm. The highest cultivation level was actually close to the middle-stage Foundation establishment realm. "Seniors, do you have an identity token issued by the three countries?" Two Qi refinement disciples respectfully stepped forward to salute and stopped the two. "I am a cultivator of the Rock Border sect. This time, I happen to be in Shi country to gain experience. This is my token." The middle-stage Foundation establishment old man clapped his hand and took out a token and handed it to the disciple. "Oh, senior, please wait a moment." The disciple reached out and took it. With a clap of his hand, he took out a mirror-like magical item from his storage bag and placed it on the token. When he activated his magic power, the mirror flashed with white light. Within the white light, there were 3 halos of different colors. One of the halos actually revealed the image of the old man. "Senior, please." After the disciple finished checking, he returned it to the old man and smiled apologetically. Senior's token was issued jointly by the three countries. The magic power fluctuations in it are the same. -8. Chapter 22:32. Yes, it's just a coincidence. The old man nodded. My senior brother is the leader of the Rock Border sect, so he gave this token to me. It's quite convenient for me these days. Senior, are you also from the Rock Border sect? The other disciple saw that the dark and thin mid-stage foundation establishment cultivator did not take out the token, so he asked with an apologetic smile. Oh, he's not. I just met him. The Rock Border sect elder hurriedly said, Senior, please take out the token and examine it. The Chi refinement disciple said respectfully. The dark and thin foundation establishment cultivator looked helpless. He clapped his hand and took out a token. He smiled bitterly and said, I'm a disciple of the Changbai sect. I'm also training in the northern part of the country of Shi. I heard that there was a battle here, so I came over. Unfortunately, I'm not as lucky as this senior and haven't met a disciple of my sect yet. It's fine, the city guard took the token and smiled. As long as you're a disciple of my sect, you can enter no matter which sect or family you're from. Yes, I know. The dark and thin cultivator smiled. But the sword cultivators of the country of Huan are still far away, so there's no need to be so cautious. As he spoke, the city guard took out a mirror. There was a white light on the mirror, but there was no halo. The city guard hesitated for a bit before handing the token to the Foundation establishment cultivator. He smiled and said, Senior, this token is correct. What are you saying? I'm not a sword cultivator, so of course the token is correct. The dark and thin Foundation establishment cultivator took the token and said with a smile, Senior, please. The two Chi refinement disciples made way and stopped the other cultivators who wanted to enter Sky Patrol City. Let's go, Senior. I still want to see what's going on. The dark and thin cultivator raised his hand and said to the late-stage Foundation establishment cultivator with a smile. The old man didn't stand on ceremony. He nodded and walked towards the city gate. Just as the two of them arrived a few feet below the city gate, a faint ripple enveloped the two of them. The token in the Foundation establishment old man's bag of holding released a strange ripple. It vibrated around the old man's body for a moment before heading toward the ripple. After the two of them fused together, they gradually disappeared. The dark and skinny cultivator didn't emit any energy fluctuations from his body. Thus, the energy fluctuations spread from his body into his body. The dark and skinny cultivator seemed to have sensed it and frowned slightly. Just as he was about to speak, a sharp cry came from somewhere in the city gate. A milky white halo descended from the sky like lightning and enveloped the dark and skinny cultivator. Ha ha ha, what kind of spell is this? Why haven't I heard of it before? The dark and skinny cultivator's body shook, and his entire appearance and figure changed greatly. His dark and skinny face protruded even more, and his body suddenly grew several feet taller. At the same time, the cultivator clapped his hands, and two huge flying swords appeared in his hands. He slashed through the air, and the flying swords, which were like door planks, shone with a sharp brilliance, and actually split the halo down below into two halves in an instant. This guy is a sword cultivator. The city guards guarding the city gate suddenly woke up and rushed over while shouting. Several Foundation establishment cultivators also rubbed their hands and cast their spells at the dark and skinny cultivator. As the dark and skinny cultivator slashed at the halo with his huge sword, he chanted an obscure incantation, and a strange fluctuation appeared behind him. Wah! A clear and bright sound rang out. Two wings that were about 3 meters thick, like that of an eagle's, grew out from his back. At the same time, a hurricane was created when he flapped his wings. This hurricane happened to hit the late-stage Foundation establishment old man beside him who was about to cast a spell. The old man's expression changed slightly, and his figure flashed quickly. He changed his spell and actually hit himself. Sure enough, the hurricane hit him, and the wind blades cut on the old man's defensive brilliance, but they were gradually annihilated in a moment. Fortunately, just when the old man was about to cast another spell, the dark and skinny cultivator's upper body was completely immortalized. As the cultivator flapped his wings, his body rushed straight into the air like a sharp arrow. After flying for hundreds of feet, he screamed again and flew toward the northwest of Sky Patrol City. The city guards of Sky Patrol City had just caught up to the sky at this time, and the spell in their hands could not catch up with his gradually fading figure. Beast Cultivator. This is a beast cultivator from Huan Country. At the gate of Sky Patrol City, not only the old man from Rock Border Sect and the beast cultivator, but more than a dozen other cultivators who suddenly saw this scene were a little stunned. After all, Huan Country's attack was still far away. They really did not expect that a beast cultivator would come to Sky Patrol City to inquire about information and actually want to enter Sky Patrol City so blatantly. One of the more knowledgeable cultivators suddenly realized, beast cultivator? The old man from Rock Border Sect was also shocked. He understood that the dark and skinny beast cultivator must have cultivated with a flying feather-type spiritual bird. That was why he could have wings on his back and his upper body turned into a beast, just like the cultivators of Dao Sect who used spiritual talismans. This flying speed is too fast. The old man from Rock Border Sect boasted that he was also a cultivator in the late stage of Foundation establishment. Just now, he wanted to capture him, but before he could do so, the other party had already gone far away. He estimated that even if he used all his strength, he would not be able to catch up with him. At the gate of Sky Patrol City, more than a dozen people were discussing. Obviously, they were very surprised by the appearance of the beast cultivator. There were even cultivators who spoke to the city guards of Sky Patrol City and asked, "The beast cultivator dares to come to Sky Patrol City. Where is our city lord? He is a nascent soul cultivator. He can capture this arrogant guy with just a little finger. Hee, fellow cultivator, don't add another round. Let's quickly invite him into the city." The city guard in the middle stage of Foundation establishment smiled apologetically and said, "How can my city lord lower himself to the same level as this guy? He doesn't even go to the Yinshi mansion, and he doesn't even ask about this war. How can we let him take action? Isn't this embarrassing my Sky Patrol City? I want to report this matter to the seniors in the Yinshi mansion and see how they decide." With that, the city guard ignored these cultivators who were discussing and went straight into the city gate, walking towards a tall building not far from the city gate. The buildings of Sky Patrol City were somewhat similar to Weeping Moon City. They were all huge stones. These stones were piled up and the style was very rough. It looked quite similar to the appearance of the cultivators in the northern part of the country of Shi. However, although it was rough, it was somewhat different. Most of the stones in Weeping Moon City were rocks, but among the stones in Sky Patrol City, there were many ice cubes mixed in. These ice cubes were either crystal clear or transparent, or there were strange crystals condensed in the transparency, emitting a strange brilliance. These ice cubes were the characteristics of the snowy plateau. The surface of the snowy plateau was much inferior to the glaciers of the Huan country, but the bottom layer was not inferior to the glaciers. In particular, these ice cubes had been here for many years. Under the heavy pressure and extreme cold, they had long solidified. They were really not inferior to the stones of Weeping Moon City. Even with some temperature and some ordinary fire, it might not melt a single drop. -8. Chapter 22:33. The Sky Patrol City used these ice blocks to build buildings. It was quite interesting. In this Sky Patrol City, many shops were completely built with transparent ice blocks. Looking from the outside, everything inside could be seen at a glance. Moreover, this ice block building, on a clear day, reflected the sunlight with a colorful halo, magnificent beyond compare. The huge building that the city guards hurried to was different from the ordinary buildings of the Sky Patrol City. The stones used in this building were dark blue in color. Each stone was several feet in size, and there was a faint layer of brilliance, which seemed to be part of the blue stone itself, but also seemed to be a strange formation. The cultivators who often walked around the Sky Patrol City knew that there were only two residences built with bluestone in the Sky Patrol City. One was the residence of the City Lord of the Sky Patrol City, Master Shuiyu, and the other was here, Yanxi Residence, which was prepared by the Sky Patrol City for the three countries of cultivation. At this time, there were already a lot of cultivators in the Yanxi Mansion. However, Most of these cultivators were at the late foundation establishment stage. Looking at their expressions, they didn't feel particularly nervous because they were involved in the battle of sword cultivators. There were even a few female cultivators standing under a tree unique to the snowy highlands. They were looking at a bunch of red flowers and chattering about something. These female cultivators also maintained their appearance and looked pleasing to the eye, slightly different from the relaxed atmosphere in the courtyard. Inside the Yanxi residence, in the depths of the layers, inside an inverted triangular pagoda-shaped building, more than 10 middle Jindan stage cultivators were frowning slightly, whispering from time to time, seemingly discussing something. A middle Jindan stage old man, dressed in a navy blue robe, whispered to a white-haired old woman beside him for a moment, then looked around, clapped his hands together and said in a loud voice, "Fellow cultivators, we have already received the message from the Sky Patrol City and have been discussing it. Now that we have a plan, why don't we take it out and discuss it openly and decide how we should deal with it?" "That's how it should be," a short old man with triangular eyes said with a sneer on his face. "Today, the sword cultivators of the Huan country are really hateful. They actually destroyed the cultivation families of my Shi country. If we don't face them head-on and let them know the prowess of our Dao sect, how will our Dao sect have the face to stand tall in the Dawn Rain continent?" That's right. Fellow Taoist Wang, please open the meeting hall so that we can make a decision," the group of cultivators said indignantly. All right. Wang Daoyu was the leader of the 7 skills sex battle against the Huan country's sword cultivators. His name was Wang Yi. When he heard everyone's agreement, he nodded his head and said, "Good." Then, he clapped his hands and took out a strange jade pendant from his storage pouch. This jade pendant was made up of 3 diamond-shaped pieces placed together. Wang Yi stretched out his hand and pointed at one of the dark green rhombus. That rhombus suddenly emitted an extremely dazzling light, illuminating the entire building in green. With a loud pung sound, a fist-sized circle of light flew out from the rhombus and rushed towards the top of everyone's heads. Wang, with a series of noises, 3 thin slits appeared in the snowy sky above everyone's heads. The slits grew bigger and bigger, finally forming 3 oval-shaped entrances. These 3 entrances filled the entire area above everyone's heads, forming the shape of the Chinese character. "This old man will go first," Wang Yi said and put away the jade pendant. He activated his magic power and flew into one of the entrances. Then, the other 10 or so cultivators did the same. However, they all flew in through different entrances. After everyone had entered, the 3 entrances rotated at the same time and gradually superimposed on each other. As they rotated, they gradually shrank and finally disappeared. After Wang Yi flew in, he was faced with a hemispherical space. The top of his head was transparent, allowing him to clearly see the scene in the sky above Sun Tian City. The palm-sized snowflakes seemed to be floating down from above. Inside the space, there were several layers of shining praying mats. The first layer had 9, the second layer had 18, the third layer had 30, and the fourth layer had more than 10. These praying mats quietly floated in the air, not moving at all. Wang Yi glanced around and clapped his hands. He took out the token given by the sect leader of 7 Skills sect. Under the activation of his magic power, the token flew out. One of the 9 praying mats on the first layer shone brightly and sucked the token over. Then, a beam of light flew out from the praying mat and covered Wang Yi. Wang Yi's body was sucked into the beam of light and landed on the praying mat. After Wang Yi sat down, the other 10 or so cultivators also entered. They each took out their tokens and landed on different praying mats. After the cultivators sat down, the dozens of praying mats started to rotate again. The trajectory was very mysterious. It seemed to be very fast, but in fact, it was extremely slow. Moreover, the other cultivators did not change at all. It was as if they were sitting on the praying mats without moving. Wang Yi glanced at them and nodded slightly. On the first layer of the 9 praying mats, there were 5 cultivators in the middle stage gold core realm. They were Gao Wei from Xuanyan School of Shi Country, De Sun from Taibai sect of Ming Country, Hang Li from Paradise sect of Lian Country, and Yuan Zhengjue from Kunlun School. On the second layer of the praying mats were either middle-stage gold core realm or early-stage gold core realm cultivators. There were a total of 8 of them. They were Xiang Ming from Huanhua sect of Shi Country, Yuan Yiguang from Lanli sect of Shi Country, Qing Jiao from Imosang Mountain of Shi Country, Li Chengxiu from Xianlu sect of Ming Country, Peng Dai from Su Yin School of Ming Country, Zhou Qingping from Qinya Ridge of Ming Country, Su Jie from Ruanjiang sect of Lian Country, and Ko Xiangling from Yongyi School of Ming Country. Fellow Taoists, it has been nearly 10 months since the battle between the 3 cultivation countries and the sword cultivators of Huan Country. We are the first batch to be sent out to fight. The second batch of disciples, and even the third batch of disciples from the cultivation families have been sent out. I believe it won't be long before they arrive at Sky Patrol City. Wang Yi cleared his throat and said loudly. His voice was not loud, and he did not deliberately use his magic power. However, his voice could be heard clearly in the entire space. In these 10 months, our Dao sect disciples have fought with sword cultivators more than 100 times. The scale of the battles varied, and they covered a wide area. Some were in the west and north of Shi Country, and some were even in the north of Lian Country. The casualties of our Dao sect disciples are similar to before. I believe each sect has their own statistics. This old man won't talk about it here. Fellow Taoist Wang, when will the second batch of disciples arrive? A fat cultivator with a bald head rubbed his greasy head and said with a grin, although our 1,000-leaf ridge did not lose many disciples, we can't be compared to your big sections. If this continues, I won't be able to explain it to the sect master. Wang Yi glanced at Zhou Qingping from 1,000-leaf ridge and said with a smile, this time, the sword cultivators of Huan Country invaded. Our 13 sects were the first batch. Naturally, we have to bear the brunt and keep the sword cultivators of Huan Country out of Shi and Lian Country. What's the big deal about losing some disciples? Won't their lives be in danger when they go out for training? Besides, if fellow Taoist Zhou can't explain it, can we? Especially the actions of the sword cultivators of Huan Country this time are quite different. Didn't fellow Taoist Zhou hear it just now? The sword cultivators actually killed the entire Zhao family of Clear Cave and took away their spirit stones, jade slips, and elixirs. This is not common in the past years. Also, you said something about losing disciples. Aren't you making things difficult for me? Hee, I just want the disciples of Changbai sect and Immortal Ascension sect to hurry over. Zhou Qingping was still grinning and was not angry. Fellow Taoist Zhou, don't worry. Wang Yi pointed with his finger. In less than a month, the seats in the conference hall will be full. The time for our Dao sect to attack the sword cultivators will come. Oh, the disciples of Changbai sect will arrive soon? Zhou Qingping still asked. Not only the cultivators of Ming Country, but the Shanghua sect and Imperial Thunder sect of Shi, as well as the Black Heaven sect and Nanming sect of Lian Country will also arrive in time. Wang Yi smiled and turned to a thin and tall elder wearing a light blue Taoist robe. Don't you think so, fellow Taoist Gao? That thin and tall elder was Xuanyan sect's Gao Wei. When he heard Wang Ye's question, he smiled and said, 7 Possibilities sect is the hall master on duty today. We will listen to fellow Taoist Wang's orders. Fellow Taoist Wang is right. According to what I know, fellow Taoist Lu Xinwu of 7 Possibilities sect is only 10 days away. Imperial Thunder sect's Thunderboat is also 30 days away. As for Changbai sect and Immortal Ascension sect of Ming Country, I don't know. Did fellow Taoist Zhou hear that? Wang Yi smiled and asked. Fellow Taoist Zhou is just worried that the sword cultivators will do something strange. An old woman shrieked. There is no need to explain anything to him. I am just curious. Why did the sword cultivators kill Clear Cave's Zhao family? The war has just begun. Are they going to ask for a nascent soul senior to come out? That's right, fellow Taoist Wang. This is very strange. A middle-aged-looking cultivator frowned and said, it was Tai Ching sect's Desun. Desun sat on the first floor's praying mat. Wang Yi couldn't help but pay attention to him. He smiled and said, fellow Taoist Desun is right. I also don't understand. This kind of killing of family clans usually only happens in the later stages of the war when there are nascent soul seniors and us golden core cultivators. There is no reason for the sword cultivators to come so early. AI, The battle between the sword cultivators and our Dao sect is the one that doesn't have a reason. A female cultivator sitting on the second floor sighed and said, "The sword cultivators can't beat our cultivation 3 kingdoms. They are like grasshoppers after autumn, forcefully tormenting themselves. Every once in a while, they will cause trouble for us. Our cultivation 3 kingdoms have to go to war and lose a lot of disciples. Their corpses are also scattered everywhere. Only then will they unwillingly retreat. What's the point of doing this every time?" Hee. Su Yin sect's fellow Taoist Peng Dai is right. Tong Yi sect's female cultivator Ko Xiangling also nodded and said, "The battle between the sword cultivators and the Dao sect is really laughable. Every time, the casualties are huge. Rather than calling it a battle, it is better to call it an experience for the disciples. Our cultivation 3 kingdoms famous Feather Immortal gathering mostly trains Qi refinement disciples. This battle between the sword cultivators and the Dao sect should be training foundation establishment and golden core disciples. Even a nascent soul master might be able to comprehend it." -8. Chapter 22:34. The 2 fairies are truly merciful. Wang Yi nods his head and says, "That's what we think. We don't want to exterminate the sword cultivators. But the sword cultivators don't think so. They are bent on destroying my Dao sect, and their sword cultivators want to monopolize the entire sect, dominate the Dawn Rain continent. If it's not like that, then why are sword cultivators always the ones who start the battles of the sword Dao? What kind of brains do they have?" Wang Feng from Rock Border sect sneers, "How many sword cultivators do they have? How many people do our Dao sect have? Our Dao sect can drown them with a mouthful of spit from each person." Ha ha ha. Wang Feng's words are very amusing, causing everyone in the discussion hall to burst into laughter. Tomorrow, this old man will send out the Inspect Heavenly Command, telling the disciples of our Dao sect from the 3 cultivation countries to come to Hung country and drown their sword cultivators with a mouthful of spit. Wang Yi convulses with laughter and can't help but say. Once these words are said, everyone laughs even more, not caring about the battle at all. The most ridiculous thing is that the sword cultivators actually pushed the blame of their missing sword cultivators to our Dao sect. They said that our Changbai sect disciple kidnapped Zhang Yutong and Zhang Yuhe. Our Changbai sect disciple is only at Qi refinement realm and has already disappeared. How could he kidnap their bright sword cultivators? Su Yin sect's Peng Dai is also grinning from ear to ear. She holds back and says, "Back then, Changbai sect was very careful. The other sects also didn't want to anger the sword cultivators. In the end, what's even more ridiculous is that their illusory sword cultivators died again. They are still blaming our Dao sect. This time it's not Changbai sect, it's our Su Yin sect. They even slandered my senior brother Zhu Chenghe, saying that he was the one who gave the orders. Does he have a brain? Senior brother Zhu is only at Golden Core middle stage. How could he kill 2 illusory sword cultivators? He even dares to drag out 2 nascent soul seniors. Isn't this even more ridiculous? Which nascent soul senior doesn't specialize in cultivation techniques and chases after 2 illusory sword cultivators? Fellow Taoist Peng is right. Yuan Zhongyu of the Kunlun sect said, "Those swordsmen called Duan Yuming and Wang Shuyao are really hateful. They actually dared to attack and kill cultivators in the 3 kingdoms of cultivation. If not for the sect leader's order, I would have killed them long ago." Hee. This Li also has the same idea. Xianlu sect's Li Chengshu laughed. "Isn't it just right now? Sword cultivator, wash your neck and obediently stretch it out so that we can vent our anger." Ha ha ha. The group of cultivators laughed again. After everyone finished laughing, Wang Yi said, "Since the sword cultivators are so generous, we don't have to not give them face. They dared to annihilate my Dao sect's family, so we must return the favor. Since my 7 skills sect is on duty today, and I have disciples near Clear Cave, my 7 skills sect will make a trip there first." Good. Fellow Taoist Wang, since my Xianlu sect also has disciples near Clear Cave, how about we join hands and slap the sword cultivators? Xianlu sect's Li Chengshu also clapped his hands and shouted, "Great!" Wang Yi was clapping his hands and cheering when he saw something shaking in front of everyone. A mirror appeared in midair, emitting a milky white brilliance. Which teacher sent the message? Seeing this, Wang Yi was not surprised and hurriedly stood up. All the other cultivators also stood up from the praying mats. When Wang Yi picked up the jade and channeled his mana, the mirror showed a clean-looking old man with a bronze Dao crown on his head. So it's Xian Tian sect's Taoist Pin Xian. Everyone knew him and hurriedly bowed. Greetings, Taoist Pin Xian. No need to be so polite. Taoist Pin Xian flicked his sleeves and said, My Xian Tian sect's disciples are divided into two groups. The earliest group should be arriving at Sun Tian City soon. The latest group was sent to the border between Huan Country and Lian Country, Fengming Mountain Range. They have already been dispatched. I'm informing you today because my Xian Tian sect's disciples in Huan Country sent a message. This time, not only the sword cultivators are dispatched, but also the weapon cultivators and beast cultivators. Especially the bird cultivators who haven't participated in battles for a long time. And the giant clan who claimed to have ancient bloodlines were also invited out from the bottom of the glacier by the sword cultivators. You have to be careful. Yes, thank you, Taoist Pin Xian. Everyone hurriedly bowed. Taoist Pin Xian flicked his sleeves, and the mirror dimmed and disappeared. Damn it, we're rich. Lonely sect's Yuan Yiguang, who had been silent all this while, blurted out, The bird cultivators have always been aloof and are known as the sons of the sky. Their flying speed is extremely fast, far beyond our Dao sect's cultivators. Even the sword cultivators who have become one with the sword may not be able to catch up with them. Before everyone could speak, there was some fluctuation in the air in front of Wang Yi. Wang Yi reached out and pointed at the fluctuation. A hazy brilliance flashed, and a foundation establishment city guard of Sun Tian City appeared from the brilliance. He bowed to everyone and said, I'm a city guard of Sun Tian City. I have an urgent matter to report to all of you. Go ahead. Wang Yi nodded slightly, and everyone sat down. After the city guard told them about the beast cultivators who wanted to rush into Sun Tian City, he said, The flying speed of this beast cultivator is too amazing. I'm afraid that the city guard and I won't be able to catch up. If possible, I'd like to ask Senior to send someone to protect Sun Tian City with us. You may leave. Wang Yi pondered for a moment, then flicked his sleeve and said, Report this matter to the city lord first. The disciples of the three kingdoms of cultivation are not complete yet. Wait for the disciples of Changbai sect and Imperial Thunder sect to come. They have the flying sword technique and the thunder escape technique, so they should be able to use it. Yes, I'll take my leave. The disciple bowed, and the brilliance around him revolved. Then he slowly disappeared from the spot. Fellow Taoist Wang, spiritual master Pin Xian, really hit the nail on the head. Xiang Ming of Huanhua sect shook his head and said, According to the city guard of Sun Tian City, wasn't it the bird cultivator from Huan Country who was probing just now? I'm afraid that this bird cultivator has fused with a spiritual beast like Sang Zhentian in his body. His flying speed and height are beyond the reach of ordinary cultivators like us. They're really bold. Yongyi sect's Ko Xiangling pursed her lips and said, They actually dared to enter Shi Country? They came to Sun Tian City to probe? Where did they get the token from? And it's the same image as the one in the token. The bird cultivator's movement is extremely fast. When fighting with our Taoist sect cultivators, they have a lot of advantages. As long as they get close, most of our Taoist sect cultivators are helpless. If they don't have a tyrannical protective magic weapon, most of them will end up dead. Heng Zhao of Utopia faction frowned and said, We have to inform the disciples of this matter immediately. Don't let them suffer a great loss due to their carelessness. As for why the bird cultivator rashly probed Sun Tian City, I'm afraid he wants to see the defense of Sun Tian City and the strength of the various sects. He dares to come just because he has the flying technique. It's a pity that Changbai sect and Imperial Thunder sect are the second batch to come. Otherwise, we can let the disciples of these two sects compete with the bird cultivator. Gao Wei of Xuanyan sect nodded and said, If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Qidian. Come to vote for recommendation or monthly votes. -8. Chapter 22:35. Well, let's do this for now. Our Seven Skills sect and Xian Lu sect will send disciples to Clear Cave. As for the bird cultivators, Let's inform the disciples first and wait for the disciples of Imperial Thunder Sect and Changbai Sect to come before we deal with it. Wang Yi stood up and said, "We'll inform our respective sects about this decision. However, I think we shouldn't put too much hope on the disciples of Changbai Sect and Imperial Thunder Sect. This time, all the disciples who came here are Foundation Establishment and Qi Refining disciples. There are too few disciples who can combine their bodies with the sword and master the Thunder Escape technique. Well, we'll report this to our respective sects and ask them to urge the two sects to send disciples who can fly faster." Xiang Ming of Huanhua Sect nodded. Immediately after, everyone formed hand seals and took out the tokens of their respective sections. They pointed them in the air in front of them, and a small pitch-black hole appeared. Everyone engraved the matter on the jade slips and placed them in the small hole. When the small hole closed, all the jade slips disappeared. "Let's go and inform the disciples." Wang Yi flicked his sleeve and activated the jade slips. A huge black hole appeared in front of everyone. Wang Yi stepped into it without hesitation and disappeared. The other cultivators followed closely behind and walked out of the meeting hall. Unfortunately, they were still too late. The bird cultivators had come to Sky Patrol City to test the waters. Would they not attack the disciples of the Three Kingdoms? 1,000 miles north of Sky Patrol City was a boundless forest. Snow covered the crowns of the giant trees. Looking at it from afar, the dark brown trunks and the dazzling white snow were an exotic scenery. Above the forest, there were a dozen cultivators flying in a group. Judging from their Taoist robes, they were the disciples of Xuanyan School. An early-stage Foundation Establishment disciple in the lead chuckled and said, "We've been living in Gold Goose Ridge for a long time. Even when we're in Foundation Establishment, we're in the southeast of Shi Country. We rarely come to the extreme north of Shi Country. I didn't expect that besides the spring and autumn, the winter snow would be so magnificent. If it weren't for the sword cultivators' attack, I'm afraid we wouldn't have thought of coming here." "Senior Brother Gong is right. I won't hide it from you, Senior Martial Brothers. Before I came to the snow region, I was terrified. I heard that the battle between sword cultivators left many casualties. Not to mention Golden Core stage cultivators, even Foundation Establishment stage cultivators would find it difficult to survive the battle." A middle-aged Foundation Establishment cultivator chuckled as he replied, "However, it has been nearly a year and the sword cultivators we have encountered are only us. Their cultivation levels are similar to the Qi Refinement and Foundation Establishment disciples of our Dao sect. Although flying swords are fast, there is a limit to it. As long as one defends properly, there is no particular danger." Exactly. This time, it was quite easy for us to kill the sword cultivator disciples. More than 10 disciples of the nurturing sword and drawing sword were killed. If we report the results of this battle, we will definitely be seriously injured. Senior Brother Gong in the lead nodded and said, "Unfortunately, the quality of the flying swords of these sword cultivator disciples doesn't seem to be very good, and the medicinal pills in their storage pouches are just passable. Otherwise, we would have reaped a great harvest this time." Yes, that drawing sword grade 3 sword cultivator probably has the strength of a middle Foundation Establishment stage cultivator. An injured disciple nodded and said, "If Senior Brother Shao did not use his divine ability and used the universe bracelet to firmly imprison him, it would really be difficult for us to kill him." "That's right, Xiao Mao. I didn't expect that your cultivation level was so weak previously. Now that you have reached the Foundation Establishment stage, your strength has soared like a boat on the river. It seems that you are almost surpassing me." Senior Brother Gong turned his head and said to a young cultivator with delicate features who was flying with his head lowered in the middle of the crowd. This cultivator with a humble and amiable face was Xiao Mao from Xuanyan School. At this moment, he was already at the early Foundation Establishment stage. Hearing his senior brother mention him, Xiao Mao hurriedly smiled apologetically and said, "What does my cultivation level count for? I don't need to praise it. Killing these sword cultivators was all due to Senior Martial Brothers. I only relied on the power of my Dharma treasure. I really don't dare to take the credit." "Ha ha ha, Junior Brother Shao is too humble." Senior Brother Gong laughed loudly and said, "Clear Cold Mountain's Martial Uncle Yuan is a famous battle general of our Xuanyan School. According to him, He once killed a foundation establishment stage cultivator when he was just an aura refining stage cultivator. Junior brother Xiao is from a famous school. How weak can you be? I wouldn't dare. Xiao Mao smiled bitterly. Just as he was about to be humble, a yellow figure suddenly flashed from the forest below senior brother Gong and charged straight at him. Although everyone was laughing, they were still on high alert. When they saw something strange, they released their divine senses. When they saw that the yellow figure was flying abnormally fast, they couldn't help but be alarmed. It was also at this moment that the yellow figure had already rushed to within a few dozen feet of them. Fight! Senior brother Gong felt a sharp gust of wind rushing towards him. Without any hesitation, he waved his hand and struck out a thunder palm. His body flew horizontally in an attempt to dodge the yellow figure's sneak attack. Gua! A cry actually came from the yellow figure's mouth. A pair of meter-long wings suddenly spread out from the yellow figure's back. As the wings flapped, the yellow figure's body was extremely nimble. In midair, it slightly shrank its body and dodged senior brother Gong's palm thunder. Then, its body spread out again, and it chased after senior brother Gong faster than a flying sword. Evil creature! Senior brother Gong took advantage of the moment the yellow figure spread out his wings to release his divine sense, and clearly saw that it was a monster with the upper body of a giant owl and the lower body of a human. He couldn't help but be alarmed. His heart trembled as he cursed. He stretched out his hand and summoned a fan-shaped magic artifact. As the magic artifact was waved, a misty water ripple attacked the bird cultivator. At the same time, Xiao Mao and the other Xuanyan school disciples also moved. A few of them summoned their magic artifacts and urged their magic power to help senior brother Gong. The others released their divine senses and looked at the forest about 100 feet below them. Kill! Sure enough, just as their divine senses reached the forest, there was a loud shout. More than 20 colorful sword lights flew out from the forest and rushed toward the Xuanyan school disciples. We've been ambushed. Retreat. When everyone saw this scene, how could they not know the danger? Some people cleverly sent out message talismans while others preemptively activated their magic artifacts and smashed them toward the sword cultivator. Gua 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 gua. With a crisp sound, the bird cultivator opened his mouth and spat out a fist-sized jade pearl. It flashed with brilliance as it rushed towards senior brother Gong. When senior brother Gong's mist touched the jade pearl, it turned into specks of ice and condensed in midair. Gah! The beast cultivator let out a low cry and charged into the ice shards. His arms danced and shattered the ice shards as if he was breaking ice. He quickly rushed to within a few feet of senior brother Gong. Seeing that the bird cultivator was close to him, senior brother Gong turned pale with fright. He clapped his hands and waved them. Many yellow talismans shot out in an attempt to block the bird cultivator's attack. At the same time, he pointed at the air and once again released a misty brilliance to cover himself. Woo! The bird cultivator activated the jade pearl again. At this time, the jade pearl turned into a palm-sized flying sword and quickly streaked through the air. Many yellow talismans were pierced by the flying sword. It really was just a piece of yellow paper. At this time, the bird cultivator was already close to senior brother Gong. He stretched out his arms and his 10 fingers were unusually sharp like bird claws. With a piyub sound, he stabbed them into the misty brilliance and tore it apart. Pooh! The jade pearl immediately shot into it. Kacha-kacha, followed by a light crisp sound. The protective brilliance around senior brother Gong instantly froze. It wrapped around him like a suit of armor. From the moment the bird cultivator flew out of the forest to when senior brother Gong was hit by the jade pearl, only a few breaths of time had passed. This kind of fast fighting style was not something that the Xuanyan disciples were used to. It was also the weakness of the Dao sect disciples. It was something that they couldn't compare to in a year of fighting with sword cultivators. The surrounding Xuanyan disciples who were prepared to help senior brother Gong were just about to rescue him when the sword cultivator's flying sword flew out from the forest. They were so frightened that they couldn't care less about senior brother Gong. They hurriedly formed hand seals and blocked the flying sword that was about to kill them. At the same time, they activated their Dharma artifacts to protect themselves. Poochie, there was a muffled sound, followed by a scream. The bird cultivator actually reached his hand into Senior Brother Gong's heart. Not only did he break through Senior Brother Gong's protective brilliance, he even dug out Senior Brother Gong's heart. G8, there was a sound, as if he was overjoyed. A ray of bloody light shot out from the bird cultivator's mouth and engulfed the heart. Gradually, the bird cultivator's sharp nose receded, and the feathers on his face and neck receded. The fleshy wings on his back also gradually shrank. A tall and thin old man with sharp eyes like an eagle's appeared in the air. Seeing that the bird cultivator was actually eating people's hearts, the Xuanyin disciples were shocked. They desperately avoided the bird cultivator and didn't dare to fight with him. Of course, many flying swords were already attacking. They only had one thought in their minds now. Xiao Mao was also shocked. He also felt helpless. Luckily, he was just an inconspicuous member of the Xuanyin disciples. He usually kept a low profile. This time, he was hidden among the disciples and wasn't the main target of the sword cultivator's attack. When Xiao Mao saw a flying sword that was as thin as a willow swaying as it flew towards him, he immediately scanned his surroundings and observed the situation of the entire battlefield. Now, 20 sword cultivators flew out from the forest, each with their flying swords looking for a target to attack. The Xuanyin disciples all attacked with 2 flying swords. Xiao Mao's group only used 1 flying sword. What was special was that the Qi refinement disciples not far from Xiao Mao were all facing the flying swords of the sword-nurturing swordsman. Xiao Mao's flying sword wasn't very bright. According to Xiao Mao's experience, this sword-nurturing swordsman's cultivation was only around the 2nd grade, which was the same as his own cultivation. Run! Xiao Mao only had one thought in his mind. With a wave of his hand, he took out an orange-red whip from his storage bag. Channeling his transcendence energy, it transformed into a mountainous whip wave that crashed towards the flying sword. At the same time, Xiao Mao's figure was like the other Xuanyin disciples. He found a deserted place and quickly fled. Where do you think you're going? The sword-nurturing swordsman attacking Xiao Mao was a middle-aged man. He had a strong physique and wore a strange bright armor. When he saw Xiao Mao's magic weapon flash with a divine ability, he sneered and formed a sword seal with his hand. The willow-like flying sword also waved. Like a willow brushing its face, it produced many thin branches. It was extremely precise, each one piercing towards the whip. -8. Chapter 22:36. Tisk. Xiaohua flicked his sleeves and said with disdain, "Why are you pulling me over for no reason? You can be my captain if you want. I'm not interested." Xiaohua, the vice sect leader of the heavenly demon sect, was disdainful. So why would he care about this vice captain? However, his words were not very sensible at this time. "Do you see? Senior brother Minghui, I have a headache." At this time, Cui Hongshan actually let go and pointed at Xiaohua and said, "He doesn't treat little brother as a senior brother at all. Do you think he can cooperate with little brother? For the sake of our team's 10 lives, senior brother Minghui should agree." "Okay." Zhang Minghui's eyes flashed with a smile and said with some difficulty, "Since that's the case, I can only reluctantly agree." "Good. Junior brothers, since senior brother Minghui has agreed to be my first team's vice captain, then his words are my words. When I'm not here, we must follow senior brother Minghui's lead." Cui Hongshan said while clapping his hands. "We understand." Dui Qiming and the others all agreed. Only Xiaohua looked at the cave entrance covered by the light fog without any expression on his face. However, Xiaohua's heart was a bit confused. What is Cui Hongshan doing? He made Jin Minghui the vice captain. Isn't that a threat to him? If this guy suddenly attacked Cui Hongshan, then only Jin Minghui can be the captain. Isn't this just looking for trouble? I really don't know what this cultivator family's pig head is thinking. Xiaohua was still thinking too much. Perhaps he didn't know that the captain's token in Cui Hongshan's hand was like a magic tool that needed blood to recognize its master. Without Cui Hongshan's activation, even if he died, others wouldn't be able to open it. Cui Hongshan could casually record things inside without others knowing. After the battle, the Imperial Thunder Sect could only use a secret technique to take back the token. If Xin Minghui really did the evil thing that Xiaohua thought, how could the Imperial Thunder Sect not know? After Zhen Minghui removed the formation flag and put away the formation plate, everyone flew out of the cave. Cui Hongshan instructed, Senior Martial Brother Minghui, let's do as we discussed just now. The range of your divine sense is large, so you'll lead the way. Later on, you'll follow Su Qing and Qiu Su in that order. The distance between the three of you will be maintained at least 1,000 feet. The two aura refining disciples and the female cultivator from converted Thunder Palace will be in the middle, and Xiao Hua will bring up the rear. This Cui has some matters to discuss with Xiao Hua, so I will accompany him for the time being. Yes, Captain Cui. Everyone nodded. Without hesitation, Zhen Minghui took the lead and flew up, releasing his spiritual will. Su Qing and Qiu Su followed closely behind, following Cui Hongshan's instructions. Once Dui Qiming and the rest were more than 300 meters away, Cui Hongshan looked up and said in a low voice, Xiaohua, come with me. I have something to tell you. Oh? What's there to say? Xiaohua urged his magic power and slowly flew away. His speed was even slower than that of ordinary Foundation establishment cultivators. His tone was somewhat indifferent. Cui Hongshan's eyes flickered a few times, and he clenched his teeth, but he still endured it. After flying straight for an hour, he said, Xiaohua, this Cui knows you have a problem with this Cui. You don't see this Cui as a senior martial brother. To tell you the truth, this Cui is the same as you. I don't see you as a junior martial brother. Since that's the case, what else is there to say? Xiaohua rolled his eyes and said coldly, this Cui doesn't see you as a junior martial brother, but eldest senior martial brother sees you as a treasure. Moreover, Master and Master's wife also told this Cui to protect you. Cui Hongshan said coldly, if it weren't for them, this Cui would have definitely pretended not to know you. But since they said so, and this Cui also made a guarantee in front of them, this Cui can't not rely on my own strength to protect you. You? What ability do you have to protect this Xiao? Xiaohua almost laughed out loud. This Cui doesn't have any ability, so ever since I boarded the Thunderboat, I've been looking for an opportunity. Cui Hongshan suppressed his anger and said, do you think this position of captain of the Imperial Thunder Sect's first team was obtained by this Cui out of thin air? Do you think Jin Yun will give this opportunity to this Cui out of thin air? This Cui used spirit stones and medicinal pills to exchange for this. Humph, that's because you're willing. It seems to have nothing to do with this Xiao. Xiaohua didn't accept his kindness. He looked into the distance and said, fellow Taoist Cui seems to want to protect the female cultivators of the converted Thunder Palace, right? Whatever you say. Cui Hongshan said indifferently, this Cui doesn't care what you think. In any case, this Cui will make it clear to you now. This Cui can take the position of captain with this captain's token. Before we reach Chicken Crow Mountain, you should find a chance to fly away early. This Cui will tell the others that this Cui received a message from the Imperial Thunder Sect to send you somewhere else. You should find a safe place and hide well. After the battle is over, contact this Cui again. If this Cui still has a breath of life, you can return to my Imperial Thunder Sect's first team. If this Xiao leaves like this, the other disciples of the converted Thunder Palace won't know? In the Cultivation 3 Kingdoms, won't there be any punishment? Xiaohua raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. The punishment for escaping the battle in the Cultivation 3 Kingdoms is one word, kill. There are no other options. Cui Hongshan said coldly, however, this Cui already said just now that this Cui is the captain of the first team. Sending you out on a mission is normal. As long as this Cui is alive, no one will investigate you. If this Cui unfortunately falls, then this Cui also won't be able to protect you. And if you feel that leaving now is too early and too hurried will arouse the suspicion of others, then you can leave at any time. When you leave, you only need to send a message to this Cui. This Cui can also give an explanation to others and pave the way for your return after the battle. All right. Without waiting for Xiaohua to speak, Cui Hongshan urged his magic power and immediately flew forward. This Cui has said everything that needs to be said. You decide what to do. Hee. Xiaohua laughed softly and said, since fellow Taoist Cui is so benevolent and righteous, why shouldn't this Xiao be happy? Farewell. Xiao Hua cupped his hands and turned around to fly towards a snow-covered foothill on his right. Huff, seeing that Xiao Hua really did escape, Cui Hongshan let out a long sigh of relief. It seemed like he had unloaded a heavy burden, and his face relaxed. His figure didn't stop and was about to fly forward. Although Xiao Hua flew away, he had already released his Buddhist sense and clearly saw Cui Hongshan's expression. This guy really wants to let this young master go? Xiao Hua was astonished. Could it be that he didn't want to set a trap for this young master? At this time, if he called others back, this young master wouldn't be able to escape the crime of fleeing before the battle. Or maybe this guy will wait until this young master is far away and see Jinyun to falsely accuse this young master. How can this young master let him have his way? Besides, this guy is nothing more than the nephew of a cultivator family. He can participate in the sword cultivator battle with a mere early-stage foundation establishment cultivation. This young master, a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator, doesn't dare to participate in the battle? If this young master leaves now, not only will I lose face as a loose cultivator, I won't be able to raise my head in front of this guy in the future. Even if I'm a golden core or a nascent soul, if this guy mentions this matter, this young master will still owe him a favor. Maybe it will even become a heart demon. From the beginning, everything this young master has done against him will also turn into flowing water. Damn it, isn't it just this old thief Jingyan? Xiao Hua's eyes flashed with a trace of a sinister smile, and he thought proudly, I want to see how you'll kill this young master in front of the Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples and the disciples of the Three Kingdoms disciples. As long as you can't kill me in front of everyone, I have the confidence to escape from your hands. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua's figure paused and he immediately flew back. Oh, what? Do you still have something to say? Cui Hongshan was slightly stunned and asked curiously. Xiao Hua's tone was still cold. You let this young master leave now, and then you immediately say that this young master fled before the battle. Can this young master's evidence still be cleared? Can this young master still escape the pursuit of the Three Kingdoms disciples? This young master won't fall for your trick. Am I that kind of person? Cui Hongshan angrily scolded. If you want to leave, then leave right now. If I want to kill you, would I still need to be so despicable? I'll just directly smash you to death with a lightning pearl. Let's do it openly. Xiao Hua ignored him and said, using underhanded methods is what you're best at. Isn't this how you obtained the position of captain of the first squad? You. Cui Hongshan was so angry that he was trembling. He pointed his finger at Xiao Hua and said you a few times, but he was unable to say a single word. After waiting for a moment, Cui Hongshan seemed to have lost his vitality. His face was somewhat gloomy as he said, Xiao Hua, I don't know where you ran off to in this half a year, but this Cui obtained a lot of information about the war. To tell the truth, we Foundation establishment cultivators have died more than aura refining cultivators. Moreover, aura refining cultivators can escape from the war as long as they're in the Foundation establishment realm. We early Foundation establishment disciples are far from that lucky. The cruelty of this war is far from what you can imagine. To tell the truth, it's already not bad if one or two of my first squad can return alive. Alas, whatever should be said, this Cui has already said. This Cui's words have always been valid in the war. You can leave at any time. Finished speaking, Cui Hongshan no longer paid attention to Xiao Hua and flew forward. This young master wants to ask you a question. Xiao Hua suddenly asked, my Imperial Thunder Sect Master Qianlazi, or the 8 Great Thunder Palaces Palace Masters, when will they participate in the war? They? Cui Hongshan sneered. You're still relying on the sect master to take care of you? Don't dream. If he wanted to, would you be sent out? Fellow Daoist Cui, you just have to answer this Xiao's question. Xiao Hua didn't answer him. They are nascent soul seniors. They will only appear in the second, or even the third phase of the war. Cui Hongshan said coldly, when they come out, it will already be more than 10 years later. At that time, you will have already turned into flying ashes. Even if you turn into flying ashes, this daddy will absolutely not. When Xiao Hua heard that Daoist Jingru would only come to the battlefield 10 years later, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. If he was given 10 years, he really wouldn't be afraid of nascent soul cultivators. -8. Chapter 22:37. You're really a loose cultivator. You don't know the gravity of the situation. If we don't escape now, sigh, when will we? Cui Hongshan sighed when he saw that Xiao Hua was still being impulsive. He then shook his head and flew forward. So what if I'm a loose cultivator? Xiao Hua curled his lips and replied, loose cultivators don't have the filthy thoughts of aristocratic family disciples. I've never thought of running away in the face of battle. Although Xiao Hua's words weren't particularly unyielding, it was absolutely impossible for him to lose face in front of Cui Hongshan. Why would Cui Hongshan pay attention to him? He flew to the front and said a few words to Dui Qiming and the others, then sped up and flew forward. He was completely acting like a competent captain. Let them be. Xiao Hua, whose cultivation base was the highest among the 10 people, was actually very relaxed. He opened his mouth and put several azure spirit pills into his mouth, as if he was eating beans. All kinds of cultivation methods were operating at the same time. The medicinal efficacy of the azure spirit pill, which required a late foundation establishment cultivator to refine for several days, was being refined bit by bit from his meridians and body. At the same time, the earth crystal Yao milk in his meridians was also being refined in an orderly manner. Xiao Hua wanted to take advantage of this relaxed moment to raise his cultivation base as soon as possible. 10,000 li northeast of where Xiao Mao was ambushed was the border between Lian and Huan countries. It was still covered in ice and snow, and an endless mountain range lay on the ground like a silver dragon. There was no wind or snow at this time, and a pale white round sun hung in the sky. On the quiet ground, 30 or so sword cultivators of both sexes slowly flew over from the south. Each of them wore strange armor and stepped on flying swords. Some of these swordsmen had injuries on their bodies, and some had bloodstains that hadn't been removed. However, they all had smiles on their faces, and more than one storage pouch hung on their waists. It was obvious that this was the side that won the battle with the Dao sect cultivators. They were returning to the Fengmeng mountain range with a full load of rewards. Senior Marshal Brother Xiang, this move of yours is really good. A petite female swordsman with an admiring smile said to a 4th-grade swordsman, the other swordsmen are fighting with the Dao sect on the west side of the Fengmeng mountain range. We ambushed them on the east side and killed so many cultivators in an instant. Our harvest is quite bountiful. This kind of method, I have plenty. The tall senior brother Xiang's face was filled with glory as he smiled and said, this diversion tactic is nothing much. We just need to act quickly and leave before the Dao sect can react. Dozens of qi refining cultivators and several early foundation establishment cultivators were all killed by our flying swords. We didn't even send out a messaging talisman, so how would they know? A cold-faced male swordsman was displeased with senior Marshal Brother Xiang's arrogance. That's right. This is all thanks to junior brother Lu's amazing methods. He didn't even let a cultivator go. Senior brother Xiang did not seem to mind as he continued in a mysterious manner. However, don't forget about the Dao sect cultivators on patrol in the Wind Dream Mountain range. A patrolling cultivator? Just kill them all. Junior brother Lu replied without hesitation. But what about their messages? Senior brother Xiang asked confidently with a smirk. Junior brother Lu was at a loss for words, not knowing how to respond. At this moment, a divine telekinesis swept over from the side of the swordsman. Upon contact, the swordsman immediately locked onto them. Damn it! Senior Marshal Brother Xiang sensed the divine telekinesis and his expression changed slightly. He waved his hand and said, quick! Let's fly on our swords and see if we can escape from these cultivators. Junior brother Lu, immediately send a message on your flying sword. See which senior brother is closer to this place, and immediately come to our rescue. Yes, this little brother understands. Junior brother Lu did not dare to say anything else. He opened his mouth and spat out a small inch-long sword. It circled slightly in the air and flew straight ahead. This group of swordsmen had only flown for half a meal's time before they were surrounded by several patrolling cultivators. Just by looking at their numbers and power, they were similar to the swordsmen. Don't even think about leaving. The first few mid-foundation establishment cultivators to arrive shouted angrily, "You sneak attacked our Dao sect disciples in our country of Lian, and you think you can leave so peacefully? We'll leave your heads behind." As they spoke, the few foundation establishment cultivators clapped their hands. Their respective Dharma artifacts flew into the air, emitting different colors of light, and smashed towards the swordsmen. The Qi refinement cultivators following behind the few foundation establishment cultivators also clapped their hands. All kinds of yellow talismans and Dharma artifacts flew out from their storage bags and attacked the swordsmen from all directions. Ha ha ha. Such attack power is really too weak. I'll let you all see what a sword cultivator is. As they spoke, the many sword cultivators did not hesitate. The flying swords under their feet flew out like horses. Sword light flashed as they met the swordsmen. Poochie, Poochie. All the yellow talismans were no match for the flying swords. They were all broken. A few low-level Dharma artifacts were also no match for the flying swords. They were either pierced or sent flying by the flying swords. Flying swords were indeed not something that Dharma artifacts could match. Humph! What sword cultivators? You're just using your primordial spirit to control your swords. What's the difference between you and us? The mid-foundation establishment cultivator in the lead had already taken out his pagoda-shaped Dharma artifact. After preparing a spell, he pointed his finger. The pagoda pressed down like a huge boulder while the cultivator spoke coldly. Then I'll let you know what a sword cultivator is. A trace of disdain appeared on Senior Martial Brother Xiang's face. He formed a spell with his hand, and the flying sword changed. It turned into a shooting star and shot towards the pagoda with a long tail. Woo! The pagoda was clearly an extremely powerful Dharma artifact. It trembled rapidly in midair. The surrounding heaven and earth spiritual qi madly rushed into it. Rays of light that looked like little xiaohua's buds condensed around the pagoda. Waves of Dharma energy surged out and waves of power slammed towards the swordsman from the pagoda. Although the swordsman saw that his flying sword had broken through the range of the pagoda's Dharma energy and was rushing towards the bottom of the pagoda, there was no joy on his face. He knew very well that although sword cultivators were known for their attack power, they only had an advantage against cultivators of the same level. If they were to fight against cultivators of the same level who had powerful Dharma artifacts, or cultivators of a higher level, they really had no advantage. That shooting star was also abnormally powerful. Not only was the tail of the sword flashing with brilliance, but the tip of the sword was also vibrating as if it wanted to pierce through the void. This vibration was also disturbed by the fluctuations of the pagoda. A series of rumbling sounds faintly sounded in the space between the shooting star and the pagoda. The flying sword and the Dharma artifact had yet to come into contact, but they were already fighting. Fall. The foundation establishment cultivator's eyes narrowed. He shook his hand and the shadow of a pagoda appeared from the bottom and rapidly fell. Break, the swordsman sneered. His fingertips moved slightly. Following his fingertips, the tip of the shooting star also moved. A ray of sword light flew out from the tip of the sword and pierced into the shadow of the pagoda. -8. Chapter 22:38. Let's go. The sword cultivator glanced over and spat a mouthful of sword energy into his flying sword. The sword cultivator's spirit followed the sword, and he wanted to escape. Don't you think it's too late to leave now? The white-haired cultivator said coldly. He raised his hand and a long 9-section bamboo whip appeared out of thin air. The 9-section whip was pale gold in color. Starting from the handle, each section was shorter than the previous one. Between each section of the bamboo, there were complicated talismans flashing. Even the bamboo sections were faintly flowing with mysterious talismans. Break. After the white-haired cultivator finished speaking, he dragged the bamboo whip without hesitation. A whip shadow was born from the bamboo whip. It was like a coquettish golden dragon, flashing with intense light. A sharp hurricane seemed to tear the void apart as it slashed towards the sword cultivator. The sword cultivator's flying speed was extremely fast. In a moment, he had already flown a few feet. However, the whip shadow was even faster and struck the sword cultivator like lightning. Ka-cha-cha! The sword cultivator's body flashed a few times before it was annihilated. The flying sword under the sword cultivator's feet was smashed into pieces, and the sword cultivator's body was also smashed into several pieces. Senior Li Zongbao? The Foundation establishment cultivator, who had closed his eyes and waited for death, did not see it coming. When he heard the sound of weapons colliding, he opened his eyes and saw the white-haired cultivator. He was extremely surprised and said, Why are you here?" This white-haired cultivator was actually Li Zongbao, a disciple of the Utmost Happiness faction who practiced the leeching treasure mirror. Li Zongbao's gaze swept over the cultivator who was about to cry from joy. He only responded and dragged the bamboo whip again. He activated his mana and waved it. Like waves, the whip shadow smashed towards the weapon cultivator, who was also fleeing in panic. Rumble. The whip shadow fell, and there was the sound of wind and thunder. The weapon cultivator's expression changed greatly. As he spat out golden gas, he tried his best to block the whip shadow. At the same time, his body glowed. Not only did his speed suddenly increase, but the magic weapon form of his long spear also rapidly appeared. Bang, 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 bang. In the blink of an eye, the overwhelming number of whip shadows smashed onto the artifact cultivator's body. Every whip shadow would make a loud sound, and after every loud sound, the artifact cultivator's body would fall a few feet. In the end, the weapon cultivator was actually smashed into the ground by the whip shadow. Boom! The deep pit that the equipment cultivator had fallen into seemed to explode as countless golden lights rushed out. Furthermore, the golden lights were mixed with some bloody lights. After the sound was heard, he looked at the deep pit again. There was only a long spear lying at the bottom of the pit, and there were traces of blood and minced meat around it. The tool cultivator had actually been smashed to pieces by Li Zongbao's bamboo whip. The Foundation establishment cultivator from the Utopia faction sucked in a breath of cold air. Of course, he had heard of Li Zongbao's reputation, but Li Zongbao had never made a move in a fight between fellow faction members. He had never imagined that Li Zongbao would be so powerful now. Although his cultivation level was only at the peak of the middle Foundation establishment stage, his strength was close to the peak of the late Foundation establishment stage. Isn't this a mortal-piercing whip a little too powerful? The Foundation establishment cultivator was secretly jealous. What are you waiting for? Li Zongbao glared at the Foundation establishment cultivator, but his figure did not stop. He flew up and pounced towards the equipment cultivator on the other side. His pure white hair fluttered in the air and scattered mercilessly. Yes, I understand. The Foundation establishment cultivator's heart trembled. He moved his body and hurriedly went to help the other disciples. Li Zongbao was as ferocious as a tiger in a flock of sheep. Although the equipment cultivator's defense was incomparably powerful, and the sword cultivator's attack was also unparalleled, under his merciless immortal-piercing whip, there was almost no one who could withstand more than 3 moves. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, not only did he reverse the previous decline of the Taoist faction, but he also killed more than 10 equipment cultivators and sword cultivators. The remaining equipment cultivators saw that things were not going well. With a whistle, they fled in all directions under the lead of the sword cultivator. Seeing the sword cultivators flee, Li Zongbao narrowed his eyes and a faint red light flashed across his face. Immediately after, the sleeves of his Taoist robe suddenly swelled up. The immortal-piercing whip in his hand swung in midair and drew a semicircle. More than 10 whip shadows flew out and chased after the sword cultivators in all directions. Li Zongbao actually wanted to kill all these sword cultivators. Bang, bang, bang. A series of sounds could be heard. The immortal-piercing whip had caught up with the sword cultivators, but after all, they were too far away. Except for one sword cultivator who was killed by the whip shadows in midair, the rest of the sword cultivators and equipment cultivators all used their flying swords to block the whip shadows. They staggered in the air for a while, and with a faint glow on their bodies, they continued to flee. You guys got lucky. At this time, the red light on Li Zhongbao's face receded and was replaced by a slightly pale face. With a wave of his hand, he put the immortal piercing whip in his storage bag. Then, with a clap of his hand, he took out a pill and popped it into his mouth. This immortal piercing whip was a powerful magic weapon. After killing so many sword cultivators and equipment cultivators with it, Li Zhongbao's Dharma power actually showed signs of drying up. Thank you, Senior Brother Li. Many cultivators of the Utopia faction who had escaped with their lives were overjoyed. They stepped forward and bowed to pay their respects. Li Zhongbao looked at the disciples indifferently and ordered, I was just passing by and rushed over after receiving your message talismans. All of you, tidy up this place and quickly gather at the nearest stronghold. Yes, we understand. When the disciples heard that Li Zhongbao wanted them to clean up the mess, they were overjoyed and smiled apologetically. Senior Brother Li, where are you going? Why are there so many storage bags of sword cultivators and equipment cultivators left behind? Do you want to take a look at them? I am under orders to go to the Sky Patrol City. Li Zhongbao's tone was still indifferent. What's the use of the items of sword cultivators and equipment cultivators in our Taoist sect? You guys can take them all. After saying that, he flew up into the sky and headed in the direction of the Sky Patrol City. Tisk. Seeing that Li Zhongbao flew away without stopping, the Foundation establishment cultivator who had previously held the pagoda said enviously, Senior Brother Li Zhongbao is indeed a famous cultivator in the 3 kingdoms of cultivation. How long has it been since you built your foundation? Now, you have already cultivated to the peak of the middle stage of foundation establishment? I'm afraid you can break through to the late stage of foundation establishment at any time. Even the golden core stage is in sight. Alas, we can't compare with Senior Brother Li Zhongbao. Another cultivator who was also in the middle stage of foundation establishment sighed, Senior Brother Li is a young talent. He has been famous since he was young. His talent is rare in the entire Xiaoyu continent. He is Martial Uncle Hung Ming's favorite disciple. Now, with the famous magic weapon of our Utopia faction, his strength is close to the peak of the late stage of foundation establishment. Exactly. Martial Uncle Li Zhongbao is probably the strongest person below the golden core stage. And Qi refining disciple whispered with admiration. It should be about the same. The foundation establishment cultivator who held the pagoda nodded. These equipment cultivators and sword cultivators are extremely powerful in both defense and attack. However, they are no match for Senior Brother Li. This is basically the strength of a golden core stage cultivator. If Senior Brother Li Zhongbao is the strongest person below the golden core stage, he definitely deserves it. No one in the 3 kingdoms of cultivation can compare with him. -8. Chapter 22:39. Let's go. The sword cultivator glanced over and spat a mouthful of sword energy into his flying sword. The sword cultivator's spirit followed the sword, and he wanted to escape. Don't you think it's too late to leave now? The white-haired cultivator said coldly. He waved his hand and a long 9-section bamboo whip appeared out of thin air. The 9-section whip was pale gold in color. Starting from the handle, each section was shorter than the previous one. Between each section of the bamboo, there were complicated talismans flashing. Even the bamboo sections were faintly flowing with mysterious talismans. Break. With that said, the white-haired cultivator whipped his bamboo whip without hesitation. A whip shadow appeared from the bamboo whip, resembling a demonic little golden dragon. It shone with a bright light and a sharp hurricane that seemed like it could tear the void apart as it streaked towards the sword cultivator. The sword cultivator's flying speed was extremely fast. In a moment, he had already flown a few feet. However, the whip shadow was even faster and struck the sword cultivator like lightning. Ka-cha-cha! The sword cultivator's body flashed a few times before it was annihilated. The flying sword under the sword cultivator's feet was smashed into pieces, and the sword cultivator's body was also smashed into several pieces. Senior Li Zhongbao? The Foundation establishment stage cultivator, who had closed his eyes and waited for death, did not see it coming. When he heard the sound of weapons colliding, He opened his eyes. Seeing the white-haired cultivator, he was extremely surprised and said, Why are you here? This white-haired cultivator was actually Li Zhengbao, a disciple of the Utmost Happiness faction who practiced the leeching treasured mirror. Li Zhengbao's gaze swept over the cultivator who was about to cry from joy. He only responded and dragged the bamboo whip again. With a wave of his magic power, the whip shadow smashed towards the weapon cultivator, who was also fleeing in panic like a wave. Rumble. The whip shadow fell, and there was the sound of wind and thunder. The weapon cultivator's expression changed greatly. As he spat out golden chi, he tried his best to block the whip shadow. His body also glowed. Not only did his speed suddenly increase, but the magic weapon form of his long spear also rapidly appeared. Bang, 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 bang. In the blink of an eye, the overwhelming number of whip shadows smashed onto the artifact cultivator's body. Every whip shadow would make a loud sound, and after every loud sound, the artifact cultivator's body would fall a few feet. In the end, the weapon cultivator was actually smashed into the ground by the whip shadow. Boom! The deep pit that the equipment cultivator had fallen into seemed to explode as countless golden lights rushed out. Furthermore, the golden lights were mixed with some bloody lights. After the sound was heard, he looked at the deep pit again. There was only a long spear lying at the bottom of the pit, and there were traces of blood and minced meat around it. The tool cultivator had actually been smashed to pieces by Li Zhengbao's bamboo whip. The Foundation establishment cultivator from the Utopia faction sucked in a breath of cold air. Of course, he had heard of Li Zhengbao's reputation, but Li Zhengbao had never made a move in a fight between fellow faction members. He had never imagined that Li Zhengbao would be so powerful now. Although his cultivation level was only at the peak of the middle Foundation establishment stage, his strength was close to the peak of the late Foundation establishment stage. Isn't this a mortal piercing whip a little too powerful? The Foundation establishment cultivator was secretly jealous. What are you waiting for? Li Zhengbao glared at the Foundation establishment cultivator, but his figure did not stop. He flew up and pounced towards the equipment cultivator on the other side. His pure white hair fluttered in the air and scattered mercilessly. Yes, I understand. The Foundation establishment cultivator's heart trembled. He moved his body and hurriedly went to help the other disciples. Li Zhengbao was as ferocious as a tiger in a flock of sheep. Although the equipment cultivator's defense was incomparably powerful, and the sword cultivator's attack was also unparalleled, under his merciless immortal piercing whip, there was almost no one who could withstand more than 3 moves. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, not only did he reverse the previous decline of the Taoist faction, but he also killed more than 10 equipment cultivators and sword cultivators. The remaining equipment cultivators saw that things were not going well. With a whistle, they fled in all directions under the lead of the sword cultivator. Seeing the sword cultivators flee, Li Zhengbao narrowed his eyes and a faint red light flashed across his face. Immediately after, the sleeves of his Taoist robe suddenly swelled up. The immortal piercing whip in his hand swung in midair and drew a semicircle. More than 10 whip shadows flew out and chased after the sword cultivators in all directions. Li Zhengbao actually wanted to kill all these sword cultivators. Bang, bang, bang. A series of sounds could be heard. The immortal piercing whip had caught up with the sword cultivators, but after all, they were too far away. Except for one sword cultivator who was killed by the whip shadows in midair, the rest of the sword cultivators and equipment cultivators all took out their flying swords to block the whip shadows. They staggered in midair, and with a faint glow on their bodies, they continued to flee. You guys are lucky. At this time, the red light on Li Zhengbao's face receded and was replaced by a slightly pale face. With a wave of his hand, he put the immortal piercing whip in his storage bag. Then, with a clap of his hand, he took out a pill and popped it into his mouth. The immortal piercing whip was a powerful magic weapon. Li Zhengbao had used it to kill so many sword cultivators and equipment cultivators, but the magic power in his body was showing signs of drying up. Thank you, Senior Brother Li. Many cultivators of the Utopia faction, who had escaped with their lives, were overjoyed. They stepped forward and bowed to pay their respects. Li Zongbao looked at the disciples indifferently and ordered, I was just passing by and rushed over after receiving your message talismans. All of you, tidy up this place and quickly gather at the nearest stronghold. Yes, we understand. When the disciples heard that Li Zongbao wanted them to clean up the mess, they were overjoyed and smiled apologetically. Senior Brother Li, where are you going? Why are there so many storage bags of sword cultivators and equipment cultivators left behind? Do you want to take a look at them? I am under orders to go to Sky Patrol City. Li Zongbao's tone was still indifferent. What use do we have for sword cultivators and equipment cultivators? You guys can take them all. After that, he flew up into the sky and headed in the direction of Sky Patrol City. Teske. Looking at Li Zongbao flying away without stopping, the Foundation establishment cultivator who had previously held the pagoda said enviously, Senior Brother Li Zongbao is indeed a famous cultivator in the 3 kingdoms of cultivation. How long has it been since you built your foundation? Now, you have already cultivated to the peak of the middle stage of foundation establishment? I'm afraid you can break through to the late stage of foundation establishment at any time. Even the golden core is in sight. Alas, we can't compare with Senior Brother Li Zongbao. Another cultivator who was also in the middle stage of foundation establishment sighed and said, Senior Brother Li is a young talent. He has been famous since he was young. His talent is rare in the entire Xiaoyu continent. He is Martial Uncle Hung Ming's favorite disciple. Now, with the Utopia faction's famous magic weapon, his strength is close to the peak of the late stage of foundation establishment. Exactly. Martial Uncle Li Zongbao is probably the strongest cultivator below the golden core. An Qi refining disciple whispered with admiration. Yes, it should be about the same. The foundation establishment cultivator who held the pagoda nodded and said, These weapon cultivators and sword cultivators are extremely powerful in both defense and attack. However, they are no match for Senior Brother Li. This is basically the strength of a golden core cultivator. If Senior Brother Li Zongbao is the strongest cultivator below the golden core, he definitely deserves it. In the entire 3 kingdoms of cultivation, I'm afraid no other foundation establishment cultivator can match him. But, another Qi refining disciple whispered, Isn't Martial Uncle Li very young? Why does he have a head full of white hair? A foundation establishment cultivator hesitated and said, I've heard from my teacher that Senior Brother Li once led a team to the Taiching sect to participate in the Feather Deity meet. I don't know what happened, but his hair turned white overnight. Since that day, his cultivation has improved by leaps and bounds, far surpassing his previous cultivation speed. No one in the Utopia faction can match him. Martial Uncle Li seems disdainful to be with us. The Qi refining disciple asked again. The foundation establishment cultivator glared at him and said coldly, What do you know? I've heard that Senior Brother Li Zongbao seems to be practicing the famous parting mirror of the Utopia faction. It has a heart like iron, emotions like steel, and Tao like the heavens. My goodness, it's so powerful. Tao like the heavens? The Qi refining disciple was speechless again. Of course, the Tao of heaven is emotionless. If you want to have a profound cultivation, you naturally have to cut off your emotions in order to be close to the Tao of heaven. The parting mirror of the Utopia faction is said to be the cultivation method closest to the Tao of heaven. Then in the end, won't he lose his emotions? Then, is he still human? Of course not. He's a celestial who can destroy the heavens and the earth with a wave of his hand. The foundation establishment cultivator replied snappily, Do you think the parting mirror of the Utopia faction is a cultivation method that mortals can practice? Even if that cultivation method is placed in front of you, you may not be able to understand or comprehend it at all. Let's go, several people said as they collected the storage bags, flying swords, and broken magic weapons scattered around them. Then they flew toward the nearest stronghold of the Utopia faction. On the Xiaoyu continent, the Huan Kingdom, the Shi Kingdom, and the Lian Kingdom bordered each other for tens of thousands of miles. In such a vast territory, there were fierce battles every day. Sword cultivators and equipment cultivators suffered many casualties, but there were even more Taoist faction disciples. Especially the Qi refining disciples, When they encountered the strange attacks of the sword cultivators and equipment cultivators, they were not suitable for them and died one after another. Of course, after nearly a year of fighting, there were also some disciples at the peak of the chi refining stage who broke through the bottleneck and stepped into the foundation establishment stage. These new foundation establishment cultivators were naturally sent back to their respective sects. However, it was said that people's opportunities were not the same. Among these new foundation establishment cultivators, there were many who entered the foundation establishment stage while fighting. They directly faced the fierce sword cultivators and equipment cultivators. Before they could really enter the foundation establishment stage, the flying swords and magic weapons would reach them. Before they could feel joy in their hearts, they were killed. Even if their senior brothers or uncle masters wanted to save them, it was too late. Under such circumstances, the disciples in charge of many sects in the meeting hall of the Sky Patrol City naturally had to send more manpower. The second batch of disciples, including the Imperial Thunder sect, and the third batch of disciples from the Cultivation families were also urged to send to the battlefront. Meanwhile, Xiaohua and the others had been flying forward for another 10 days. They only saw the boundless snowy wilderness and mountain forests. They didn't see anything out of the ordinary, nor did they see any sword cultivators attacking them. Xiaohua, whose cultivation had been steadily increasing, unconsciously came to a realization. Damn it, actually this relaxed isn't much different from going into seclusion. Now it's only the first stage of the war. The nascent soul cultivators and high-level sword cultivators have not come out. Isn't this war my world? Why should I be afraid of them? I can deal with them at will. Should I also make a name for myself? -8. Chapter 2240. Puff Puff. After a series of sounds, the brilliance receded and Xiao Mao's lone whip was revealed in mid-air. Kill. Xiao Mao's voice was stern, and he seemed to be terrified. His body swayed slightly as if his magic power was running out. A hint of redness flashed across his face. He waved his hand again, and the magic whip landed in his hand. He let out a soft cry, and a suction force appeared on the whip, sucking in the surrounding spiritual energy. Many small vortexes appeared on the tip of the whip and lashed out at the swordsman. You're just an early-stage foundation establishment brat. How can you be my match? The swordsman laughed and was very disdainful. He pointed his finger, and his flying sword suddenly enlarged. It was like a huge tree and blocked the whip. Pop, pop, pop. The sound was like tiny firecrackers. Xiao Mao's whip struck the flying sword, but it was useless. At this time, Senior Brother Gong was killed by the yellow-clothed bird cultivator. The group of Xuanyan school disciples fled in panic like birds startled by the twang of a bow. Xiao Mao was naturally no exception. He held the whip in his hand and fled. You want to leave? Aren't we letting you off too easily? Many sword cultivators were delighted when they saw the situation. They traveled swiftly on their flying swords and were not afraid of the Xuanyan school disciples fleeing. Each of them roared and stepped onto their flying swords to give chase. Luckily. Xiao Mao wiped the sweat off his forehead. Seeing that the middle-aged swordsman was the only one chasing after him, he felt lucky. He waved his whip and maintained the same distance from the swordsman. In fact, the distance between him and the swordsman was gradually shortening. The bird cultivator's sharp gaze swept across and paused on Xiao Mao for a moment before turning to the other Xuanyan school disciples. It seemed that he was searching for a cultivator who could escape the swordsman's pursuit. Seeing the distance between him and the bird cultivator shrinking, Xiao Mao's eyes turned slightly as he thought about how to escape. At this time, there was a caw. The bird cultivator seemed to have realized something was wrong. Without transforming, he flew in the direction opposite of Xiao Mao like an arrow. A heaven-sent opportunity. Right now. Xiao Mao was overjoyed. He waited a little longer before putting the whip back into his storage bag. He opened his mouth and spat out a golden ring the size of a fist. The golden ring grew with the wind, and in an instant, it was several feet long. Go. Xiao Mao used his dermic powers, and the universe ring smashed towards the swordsman. Oh! The swordsman was slightly surprised, but immediately his face showed great joy. So there is a magic treasure. This sword is really lucky. As he spoke, He pointed his finger, and the flying sword under his feet charged towards the universe ring. This swordsman didn't believe that an early foundation-building cultivator's magic weapon could have any power. However, just as the flying sword was about to pierce the heaven and earth ring, Xiao Mao suddenly activated the true essence within his meridians. Like a raging sea, his mana surged into the heaven and earth ring. What? Middle stage foundation establishment? Seeing Xiao Mao's dermic power surge and the magic treasure's power increase like water, the swordsman suddenly realized that the early foundation establishment cultivator he had estimated had suddenly become a mid-stage foundation establishment cultivator. He couldn't help but be shocked. However, the swordsman was only shocked. He was a second-grade drawing swordsman, similar to the peak of early foundation establishment. In terms of attack power, he wasn't much weaker than a mid-stage foundation establishment cultivator. However, Xiao Mao still exceeded his expectations. Just as the swordsman activated his sword technique again, the willow-like flying sword flashed with brilliance, as if it was about to entangle the universe ring. Suddenly, the universe ring produced a strong suction force and spun towards the swordsman. A strong confinement force was produced from the universe ring, firmly confining the swordsman's sword origin. This is bad. Just as the swordsman had this thought, the universe ring flew faster than the swordsman and quickly wrapped around the swordsman. 81 tiny blades of yin and yang were produced from the universe ring, cutting the swordsman's body into tiny pieces. Run! With a wave of his hand, Xiao Mao put away the swordsman's storage bag, flying sword, and universe ring. Once again, he activated his dermic powers and flew at the speed of a mid-stage foundation establishment cultivator, perhaps even faster than that. He quickly fled into the distance. The bird cultivator obviously didn't have the time to care about Xiao Mao. By the time the other sword cultivators noticed the abnormality, Xiao Mao had already escaped without a trace. The bird cultivator was incomparably furious. He raised his head to the sky and cried out several times. He knew that even if he chased after Xiao Mao now, he probably wouldn't be able to find any trace of Xiao Mao. Xiao Mao was so cunning. How could he fly in a straight line? Just as the bird cultivator had thought, Xiao Mao changed his direction several times before finally stopping at the edge of a frozen river. His body paused in midair for a moment before he abruptly charged into the frozen river. His cultivation level rapidly dropping to the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment. Xiao Mao rushed into the glacier. His body flashed with brilliance. The glacier was bone-chilling. Although it was separated by brilliance, Xiao Mao could still feel the coldness within. However, to him, this was a piece of cake. He sighed in his heart and thought to himself, if not for Big Brother Zhao's secret technique that allowed me to activate my meridians and raise my dermic powers by a small realm, I really would have died in the hands of a sword cultivator today. Unfortunately, after activating my dermic powers, my meridians are very uncomfortable. If not for several hours of cultivation, it would be difficult to eliminate the aftereffects. However, this technique is really too miraculous. It actually allowed me to advance by leaps and bounds all the way to the peak of early foundation establishment. It's only a matter of time before I reach the mid-stage of foundation establishment. I wonder what Big Brother Zhao's cultivation level is now? Will he return for this sword cultivator battle? Xiao Mao thought for a moment and closed his eyes again. He activated a simple dragonization art to eliminate the discomfort in his meridians. And what about Xiaohua? Although he wasn't on the battlefield of sword cultivators, he was still on his way there. On the Thunder Ship, Xiaohua was still quite carefree. Right now, he was lacking time. If there wasn't this battle between sword cultivators and Daoist sects, he would rather go into seclusion. He was clear in his heart that his primordial spirit was now very strong. If he went into seclusion for 100 years, he should definitely be able to lower himself compared to others who went into seclusion for 1,000 years. Daoist sects, Buddhist sects, soul cultivation, and other techniques could all improve one by one. His future was definitely limitless. Unfortunately, he didn't have a life of leisure to cultivate. Apart from the time when he was in the early Qi refinement realm at Songhua Ming, he could still be considered to have cultivated in peace. The rest of his time was spent roaming around, gaining experience everywhere. He simply didn't have a chance to take a breather. Sigh. After this battle, I must go into seclusion. Xiao Hua sat cross-legged. He was comprehending the techniques one by one. All kinds of comprehensions were unceasing, causing him to scratch his ears and cheeks in joy. When he reached the peak of his cultivation, he couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Why don't I use corpse escape? Immediately play dead when I reach the front? Hide in a place to cultivate in seclusion? Wait until after the battle to appear? Xiao Hua immediately felt that something was wrong. He raised his eyes and looked at the 4-Chi refinement disciples in the quiet room. Although they were barely cultivating with their eyes closed, Xiao Hua could tell with a slight sweep of his divine sense that these 4 people's thoughts were fluctuating. The flow of their true Qi was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. It was far from its usual smoothness. Naturally, he also knew that there were many distracting thoughts in their minds. They were very worried about their own prospects. -8. Chapter 22:41. Forget it. Xiao Hua killed the idea of escaping. Since I'm a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect, I have to do my best and let nature take its course. Moreover, I can improve my cultivation by fighting. Although I only cultivate on the Thunderboat, I can still improve, right? In just a few months, all kinds of cultivation have improved. It's just not as obvious as in the myriad Thunder Valley. Counting with my fingers, I should reach the northernmost part of the country of Xi in 10 days. Just as Xiao Hua was having some free time to think, the Thunderboat shook violently and came to a stop. Oh, could it be that we've arrived? Xiao Hua was slightly surprised. Inside the quiet room of the Thunderboat, there was a restriction that blocked divine sense. Xiao Hua didn't know what was happening outside, so he only opened his eyes slightly. We've arrived. An aura-refining disciple opposite him couldn't help but blurt out. As he said this, the disciple's face turned slightly pale, but then there was a kind of blush in the whiteness, as if a kind of relief, a kind of heart that had been hanging for a long time, finally settled down. However, the Thunderboat was still for a long time, and no disciple came to greet them, nor did they hear the voice of a golden core cultivator. Could it be that there's something else? Xiao Hua's mind turned slightly, and he closed his eyes to cultivate. His time was extremely precious, and since this matter had nothing to do with him, of course he had to cultivate. Just as he closed his eyes, a burst of hurried footsteps came. When they arrived outside their quiet room, they stopped again. Cui Hongshan poked his head in and shouted, "Xiao Hua, come out!" "What?" Xiao Hua glanced at him unhappily. "Have we arrived? Why didn't the sword cultivator attack?" "We haven't arrived yet," Cui Hongshan said unhappily. "Do you want to die like this?" "We haven't arrived yet. Why are you calling me?" Xiao Hua ignored him. "This is the captain's token of my Imperial Thunder Sect." Cui Hongshan said nothing, clapped his hand, and took out a token. He held it in front of his eyes and said seriously, "I've been ordered to mobilize people. Xiao Hua, you're a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect, so you must obey this order. Quickly come out with me." "Yes." Xiao Hua glanced at the token. In addition to the word 1, there was also a lightning, which was exactly the same as the symbol on his Taoist robe. Although he did not know whether the token was real or fake, since it was announced on the lightning boat, it could not be fake. He could only reply lazily and stand up. Seeing Xiao Hua in such a state, Cui Hongshan almost wanted to kick Xiao Hua. During these few months, other than cultivating, he was still thinking about how to protect himself, Xiao Hua, and Dui Qiming. He didn't expect that Jin Yun would actually come looking for him when the Thunderboat stopped. It was said that an order came from the meeting hall of the Sky Patrol City, asking the Imperial Thunder Sect to send out 10 people. These 10 people were to fly at an extremely fast speed to the Foul Crow Mountain to await orders. The first thing that came to Jin Yun's mind was Cui Hongshan. This was the perfect opportunity to fulfill Cui Hongshan's wish. Cui Hongshan looked at the captain's token given by Jin Yun in front of him and couldn't believe his eyes. He didn't give Jin Yun a single spirit stone, so how could Jin Yun give such a good thing to him? However, he only hesitated for a moment and immediately took the captain's token. Under Jin Yun's lead, he went to the Thunderboat of the Dui Thunder Palace and brought Dui Qiming, Dui Chiming, and a few other junior sisters over. Then, under Jinyun's guidance, he casually picked a few foundation establishment and Qi refinement disciples. The last one was Xiaohua. Xiaohua lazily came to the quiet room with a puzzled expression. When he saw Dui Chiming and a few other female cultivators, as well as a few other disciples of the Thunderous Palace, he couldn't help but frown. Well, you are the first team sent by my Imperial Thunder Sect. According to the order of the Imperial Thunder Sect, the serial number of this team is controlled by my Imperial Thunder Sect. There is no doubt that you are the first team of the Imperial Thunder Sect. When Jinyun saw that the 10 people were here, he said with a smile, "This old man appointed Cui Hongshan from the Myriad Thunder Valley as your captain. This time, you are going to Chicken Crow Mountain. According to the message from the Imperial Thunder Palace, it seems that you need to fly very fast. The requirement for cultivation is not very high. Presumably, you are going to do some communication work, so it won't be too dangerous. So, listen to Cui Hongshan's arrangement and come back quickly." Yes, this disciple understands. Except for Xiaohua, everyone else said in unison. They were very energetic. Seeing that Xiaohua didn't speak, Jinyun felt a little strange. He turned his head and said, "Xiaohua, your senior brother Cui has put in a lot of effort. Listen to Captain Cui's arrangement along the way. In addition, do you have any questions?" "That, senior brother Jin, the requirement is fast. Can we escape if we see any danger?" Xiaohua blinked his eyes and asked in a low voice. When Cui Hongshan heard this, he almost stomped his feet. His cultivation was not the highest among the 10 disciples. He still wanted to rely on Xiaohua to help him. He didn't expect that Xiaohua would say such depressing words as soon as he opened his mouth, and even said it in front of Jinyun. It really made him feel embarrassed. Sure enough, 2 of the early-stage Foundation establishment disciples from the Thunder Palace showed a trace of disdain on their faces. Cough, cough. Jinyun was even more surprised and almost coughed. He looked around and saw that there was no one else beside him. He lowered his voice and said, "The Battle of the Sword Dao has always been tragic. People can't help themselves. Sometimes, even if you want to escape, you may not be able to. Sometimes, if you want to escape, you will lose your life early. Whether you escape or not is not a problem. The problem is, you must protect your own life. Only by protecting your own life can you complete the mission of the Imperial Thunder Sect disciples. Of course, if you can't complete the mission, and the assembly hall learns that you were treated unfairly, there will definitely be punishment. A light punishment is to cripple your magic power. A heavy punishment is to directly take your life. I'm afraid there is no need for this old man to say which is more important, right?" Seeing Jinyun speak so straightforwardly, Xiaohua nodded slightly in his heart and bowed. This disciple understands. And, do the other disciples have anything else to say? Jinyun asked again. This disciple has a question?" Xiaohua asked in a low voice again. Cui Hongshan's face was red. He really wanted to rush up and kick Xiaohua off the thunderboat and drop him to his death. "Can't you shut up first? Wait until Jinyun finished speaking and ask me in private?" Jinyun was naturally also surprised, but his attitude changed slightly. He asked with a smile, "Xiaohua, do you have any other questions?" This disciple has some old grudges with cultivators from other sects. This time, being sent to Hun Country, it's inevitable that I will meet other people. If they are ruthless to this disciple, what should this disciple do? Xiaohua said word by word. That's right. Hearing this, Cui Hongshan was also shocked. Xiaohua's words were correct. Between sects, between cultivators, there were definitely conflicts. Wasn't Xiaohua imprisoned by the Changbai sect's Daoist Jingru for several years? If he met cultivators from the Changbai sect, what should Xiaohua do? Thinking of this, Cui Hongshan's resentment towards Xiaohua lessened a bit. "Oh, Xiaohua, do your enemies have higher cultivation than you?" Jinyun smiled and asked with interest. "Hee, naturally there are low and high cultivators." Xiaohua laughed mischievously and said, "This junior is just looking to see if there is any problem?" Naturally there is." Jinyun nodded and said, "The battle between sword cultivators and my Dao sect is a battle between sword cultivators and my cultivators. It is a battle that concerns the face and stability of my Tao sect. All the grudges between cultivators cannot be mentioned in the battle. If any cultivator rashly uses their weapons because of their own thoughts and delays the battle, regardless of their cultivation, they will be killed. What if it doesn't delay the battle? Xiao Hua asked. Jin Yun was somewhat impatient and waved his hand, saying, "That will depend on you. As long as you meet an enemy on Chicken Crow Mountain and he dares to attack, you can send a message to this old man. This old man will definitely report this matter to the discussion hall and will definitely kill him." This disciple understands. Xiao Hua bowed and replied, "All right, do you have any other questions?" Jin Yun asked again. Seeing that no one answered, Jin Yun said coldly, "This time, this old man appointed Cui Hongshan as the captain of the first team. This was not done casually because this old man has some understanding of Cui Hongshan. Although he is not the one with the highest cultivation among you, this old man knows that he is a person who prioritizes the overall situation. He is also a person who can place the affection of fellow apprentices in his heart. Since he led you out, he will definitely do his best to bring you back. Actually, you may not be able to complete the mission well, but your life is the most important. My Imperial Thunder Sect's face is also important. If any of you do not listen to Cui Hongshan's arrangements and make decisions on your own, causing the mission to fail, this old man will only need to listen to Cui Hongshan's report. Don't blame this old man for being merciless. Yes, this disciple understands." Seeing Jin Yun's warning, the other two Thunderclap Palace disciples felt apprehensive in their hearts, and then everyone else bowed and replied. They naturally understood the killing intent in Jin Yun's words. Of course, if you complete the mission in return, this old man will definitely not be stingy with the rewards. Jin Yun smiled and said, "All of you are the first team of my Imperial Lightning Sect. You're the first team of my Imperial Lightning Sect to be sent out on a mission. Don't disappoint me, Thunderclap Palace, and all the disciples of the Imperial Lightning Sect. If you can return to the Imperial Thunder Sect alive, you will definitely have a place in my Imperial Thunder Sect's records." Hearing up to here, everyone suddenly understood the significance of this first team. Of course, the first team, and also the first mission of the Imperial Thunder Sect disciples. As long as they completed it, this great battle would be recorded in the Imperial Thunder Sect's records. Perhaps the other missions would not be recorded, but this first mission must be recorded. Didn't the names of all the disciples in the first team have to be recorded? Moreover, even if they could not complete the mission, as long as they could return alive from the great battle, the first team could even meet the Imperial Thunder Sect Master Qianlazi. Cui Hongshan was so excited that his face was flushed red, and he said anxiously, "Senior Brother Jin, our first team will be reserved throughout the entire battle? This token of mine. -8. Chapter 2242. That's right. As long as you're alive, you'll be able to keep this token. Unless no one from your first squad is left alive, you'll be in charge of it." Jin Yun said with a smile. "This is your luck, and it's also my luck. I was resting on the thunder ship of the Heavenly Thunder Palace when I received a message from the conference hall. I didn't hesitate to snatch this task from Marshal Uncle Qian. This first team belongs to none other than my Thunderous Thunder Palace disciples." "Yes, I understand." Cui Hongshan nodded. "I'll do my best to complete the task given by Senior Brother Jin. I won't embarrass my Thunderous Thunder Palace or damage the name of the first team. Yes, I believe in you." Jin Yun nodded and looked at the three female cultivators. The three female cultivators of Thunderous Thunder Palace were also selected by me. You must also protect their safety. Yes, I understand. Cui Hongshan didn't know how many times he said, "I understand." He was almost dizzy. That day, he only wanted to protect Xiao Hua and Dui Qiming. He didn't expect to encounter such a good thing. The captain of the first team of the Thunderous Thunder Sect. This was definitely something he could show off in the future. Jin Yun looked around again and instructed, "It's getting late. Hurry up and get on your way. The task of Chicken Crow Mountain is rather confidential. Other than a limited number of people, no one else knows about it. After you complete the task, go directly to Sky Patrol City to find us." "Yes." Everyone responded and bowed to bid farewell to Jin Yun before flying out of the Thunder ship's light shield. Once they were out of the light shield, a gust of cold air immediately hit them in the face. Everyone looked around and saw a vast expanse of white mountains, boundless and endless. Buzz, with a thunderous roar, dozens of Thunder ships glowed at the same time and flew into the distance, leaving behind 10 men and women in the air. Captain Chui, are we flying straight to Chicken Crow Mountain now? A short, thunderous Thunder Palace disciple with a higher cultivation than Chui Hongshan released his divine perception and asked softly. Chui Hongshan glanced at Dui Qimeng, who was not far from him, and saw the concern in her eyes. He smiled faintly and said, "Senior Martial Brother, don't be anxious. Although we are all disciples of Thunderquake Palace, we are not familiar with each other. Let's find a quiet place to introduce ourselves and get to know each other better. In the future, the 10 of us will be a team. It won't be good if we don't know each other well." "Yes, I'll listen to your orders, Captain." The disciple nodded slightly and pointed. "There seems to be a dry cave over there. Why don't we rest there first?" "All right, please lead the way," Chui Hongshan said politely. The disciple said that it was nearby, but after flying for 2 miles, they saw the dry cave he was talking about. It was at the edge of a cliff, blocked by a protruding mountain rock. There was no snow inside, and it looked very dry. Everyone landed and slowly walked into the cave. The disciple clapped his hands again and took out a few array discs. He said in a low voice, "From today onwards, our whereabouts must be concealed. Even if we are resting, we must use arrays to conceal ourselves. This is a set of arrays that I got during my previous training. It can conceal our whereabouts. I wonder if Captain Chui wants to use it?" "Yes, please set up the array, Senior Brother Jin." Chui Hongshan's expression was normal, but he was extremely uncomfortable in his heart. What Senior Brother Jin said was right. He also thought of it, but he didn't have the array discs and array flags to set up the array. He couldn't take them out at all. However, if Senior Brother Jin was the one who set it up, it would be embarrassing for him. When Senior Brother Jin set up the array and waved the array flag, a layer of faint cloud appeared at the entrance of the cave, covering the entire cave. "All right, it's done." Senior Brother Jin rolled up the array flag and handed it to Chui Hongshan. He said with a smile, "This cloud array is the best for concealing our whereabouts. Captain Chui, as the leader of the team, please take this array flag." "Hee, it's not necessary." Chui Hongshan waved his hand and said with a smile, "Senior Brother Jin, didn't you say it was good? The 10 of us are a team. What's the difference if you take it or I take it?" "All right, I'll take it first. I'll follow Captain's instructions." Senior Brother Jin didn't stand on ceremony. He withdrew his hand and put the array flag into his sleeve. Chui Hongshan glanced at everyone and cupped his hands. "I'll introduce myself first. I'm a disciple of the Myriad Thunder Valley. My name is Chui Hongshan. I've been in the Foundation establishment stage for nearly 20 years. I'll have to trouble all of you to support me in the future." Then, the short Senior Brother Jin also introduced himself. "My name is Zhan Minghui. I'm a disciple of Chiu Moling. To tell you the truth, I've been in the Foundation establishment stage for 30 years and haven't broken through. I was only sent out for the Sword Cultivator battle this time." A fair-skinned, tall, and rather handsome disciple also introduced himself. "I'm Su Qing. I'm a disciple of the Lightning Thunder Hall. I've been in the Foundation establishment stage for almost 30 years. I'm the same as Senior Brother Jin. Alas, I had no choice but to face the tribulation this time. I'm Chiu Su." A low, muffled voice sounded. It was the cultivator with the dark skin of a farmer. "I'm a disciple of the Technique Imparting Pavilion. I've been in the Foundation establishment stage for less than 10 years. I was unlucky this time. When the Technique Imparting Pavilion drew lots, I was unfortunately drawn and had no choice but to participate in the battle. It's my honor to be assigned to the first team with all of you." Next was naturally Xiaohua's turn. Xiaohua's face was expressionless as he said indifferently, "I'm Xiaohua. I'm a disciple of the Myriad Thunder Valley. I've been in the Foundation establishment stage for 30 years. "Oh, the Myriad Thunder Valley? You're Captain Chui's fellow disciple?" Zhen Minghui nodded and smiled. Junior brother Xiao should learn from your senior brother Chui. After this battle, you'll definitely be able to catch up to him. If it was any other day, Xiaohua would have sneered and directly said that he had nothing to do with Cui Hongshan. But thinking about what Jin Yun said earlier, Xiaohua restrained himself and didn't say a word in the end. On the other hand, the three female cultivators from Converging Thunder Palace were whispering to each other. No one knew what they were talking about. I'm Jinhua, a disciple of the 100 Refinements Hall. I've been in the 12th layer of Qi refinement for 6 years. I've been unable to reach the foundation establishment stage for a long time, so I was sent to participate in the battle. I hope I can take a peek at the foundation establishment stage as soon as possible and be on the same level as all of you martial uncles. A thin and weak disciple introduced himself in a soft voice. I'm Baisu Gu, also a disciple of the 100 Refinements Hall. Like senior brother Jin, I've been in the 12th layer of Qi refinement for 5 years. The last Qi refinement male disciple introduced himself. All right, senior brothers have finished introducing themselves. It's my Converging Thunder Palace's turn. Dui Qiming whispered a few words and smiled. I'm Dui Qiming. I've been in the foundation establishment stage for more than 20 years. This time, I was also drawn and had no choice but to participate in the battle. I hope all of you will support me. -8.